Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини, та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались в кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у чах перегрівся навар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страни.
Найкращий пастух баранячих отар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Ті, хто води всяке озброєння різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів. Робить примар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, там пивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить, хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ, тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
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 Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 822 of the news. And it's good to see you all once again. And Ukraine has decided to strike back very bigly, and it's good to see you all once again.
And of course, we're going to be covering the past 24 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine and the news of the upcoming Ukrainian counterattack, which will sweep the Russians off the field in the Kharkiv area. And not only that, today it is official. 500,000 Russian soldiers have been wounded and killed in the war in Ukraine. That number was just published a little while ago, and not only that, we are seeing massive battlefield successes once again by Ukrainian armed forces, and we are also seeing that the Russians are desperate to try and make it look like things are not that bad, to the point of saying something that we already knew a long time ago as something new today. But we have loads of information, loads of news to cover, not just from inside of Ukraine, but inside of Russia as well. And also, just to keep in mind, just to remind everyone of this, we are keeping an eye on the situation in East Asia, and if anything once again starts to kick off, we will let all of y'all know immediately, either in a breaking news live stream that begins immediately, or in a nightly live stream like this, or in a short war video like we put out usually every day. Also, we're keeping an eye on the Middle East as well, although the situation appears to be quite okay there. But just wanted to make sure that y'all knew that things are being observed in those areas, and if anything does happen that's big enough, we will make sure to report on it. But moving on into the major breaking news today, it brings us immediately into the Vovchansk Frontline, as we have seen that not only have the Ukrainians contained the Russian offensive in this direction, really stopping and suppressing 30 to 50,000 Russian combat troops from moving forward even an inch. They are now announcing that the defensive has been so successful in Ukraine's end that they are now going to be working towards conducting a counteroffensive against the Russian forces in Kharkiv and driving them out of the area. We were able to see that over the past 24 hours, the front line has not really changed at all in this area, and it's once again proving that the Ukrainians have completely contained this attempted Russian offensive dead in its tracks. We now know that regardless whether the Russians have objectives that they're trying to reach in terms of villages further south, they will never reach them most likely, as this front line has stagnated for many days now, and it is showing that the Russian offensive has completely run out of steam. We have also been able to hear this from Alexander Syrsky as well, the chief of the armed forces of Ukraine, and we're also getting to see footage from the ground, especially inside the city of Vovchansk, showing that not only are the Ukrainians levying heavy artillery against the Russian forces that had made it into Vovchansk, but they are also engaging with them in street-to-street combat and winning these battles, these confrontations with these Russian forces in Vovchansk, the most major axis of this battlefield at the moment. We were able to see two of these clips published by the Russian Volunteer Corps, a part of the Ukrainian Armed Forces, today. Here is our first clip. We can see them engaging in a firefight with Russians down the street. We can see this soldier popping out with an RPG and firing it at the Russian positions down the way, hitting them dead on. And we now see the RDK forces pulling back and moving on into the house. We can see them pointing out the next group of Russians that they need to fire at. We now hear what may possibly be return fire as they're continuing to point out Russian positions down the street. And we now see the machine gunner giving them the heat.
Damn, he just emptied the whole thing. Good lord.
Dude, he said, they're right there, right there. And he went, oh, okay. Jeez.
Bro said, let him have it.
Man, he gave it to him. He knows this is a machine gun. Also, we can see in this clip here, probably just a little bit outside of Vovchansk, the Russian Volunteer Corps firing an AGS-17 like it is a mortar, and it's a 40mm grenade launcher. So in this kind of a use, it kind of is really just a very small infantry mortar. But we can see them firing that right here. There's a lot that they're not showing in these clips with the AGS. It actually takes a couple of test fires, I guess you could say, really some ranging shots to be able to lay down heat like that, but they clipped all that out just to show you all the end result of them laying down a large amount of grenades onto a Russian position inside of Vovchansk. Meanwhile, moving on from that clip and into our next one, we also got to see more footage of the Russian Volunteer Corps in Vovchansk. And let me double check. This is actually a duplicate clip, much like the other one. It just started a little bit later on in the video and looked different, but nevertheless, moving on from that and into our next clip, we were also able to see that the Ukrainians are using precision bombs to strike Russian positions that are into the closer to the center area of Vovchansk and attempting to wipe them out. We do not know what kind of munitions these are. They're some kind of precision-guided bomb of a sort. Could be a missile from a HIMARS, could be a hammer provided by the French, which is an airdrop bomb. It could be other kinds of bombs. We have seen that the Ukrainians have gotten access to some very new U.S. bombs and are using those on MiG-29s. We don't know what it is, but we do know that these are Ukrainian bombs landing on Russian positions in this clip. And so here is the footage of the Ukrainians bombarding Russian positions inside the town. We can see several of the hits hitting on this one building in the center right here. And it appears that a third, fourth, and possibly fifth bomb has also hit the building as well. It appears that they're trying to level this building to its foundations and also wipe out all the Russian forces that are inside of it at the moment. We can now see the smoke filling the air as the building is most likely collapsed from the explosions, and once again showing us that the Ukrainians are using a large amount of firepower in this area to suppress Russian forces and make sure that they do not continue to advance further into Vovchansk or out of Vovchansk and into the rest of Kharkiv on the other side of the Seversky Donets River. Meanwhile, we got a little bit of a comical view about how Russian medical evacuations are being conducted from this area. As many of y'all know, the Russians are receiving an incredibly high amount of killed and wounded on a daily basis. The Ukrainians in some places kind of get close a little bit to matching Russian casualty numbers in vehicles, but from what we understand in personnel, Ukrainian losses are always a good bit lower than Russian ones, and that's why we very rarely get to see any videos of Ukrainian medical evacuations, because just in number and frequency, they happen far less. But we did get to see the Russians attempting to evacuate some of their injured from Vovchansk today. And I gotta say that it is a pitiful sight. It's really honestly so pitiful, it's laughable. But they put a wounded Russian soldier in a wheelchair, I guess they found somewhere in the town, and started trying to wheel him out. But the problem is that they're trying to wheel him over the debris of the town that they've destroyed, and it's not really going too well. So here's the clip.
Oh my God. Man, I knew when you said he had a normal wheelchair, this was going to be a clown show.
Oh,
He's
and
going
they
to dump him out in a minute, isn't he?
You never know. You never know. But we can see them continuing to wheel the guy on through.
I think I'd rather be the Ukrainians on the robot like four-wheeler type thing that takes you off the battlefield. That seems better to me.
I would honestly agree, Matty. I think that's a lot better than whatever this is. But still interesting to see. But one thing that kind of is a more interesting thing to note from this, rather than the stupidity of this whole entire thing, is that I just saw a very bad one to say womp womp, and I was like,
Womp womp.
Oh my lord, dude, that made me stop in my tracks. I saw that and I went womp womp. But anyways, moving on from that, one thing that we're getting out of this that's interesting is that once again, the Russians didn't think out anything rather than the offensive itself, which is true to Russian form and Russian planning. Apparently, the Russians do not have a large amount of medical teams in the area or even stretcher bearers to move out the wounded, so now it's upon the individual soldier to try and find ways to get their comrades off the battlefield. It is showing that things are, once again, not well thought out in this Russian offensive, as instances like these are showing that this kind of innovation isn't because of genius, it's more so out of acts of desperation or a complete lack of normal military services that would be seen in these kinds of offensives from other countries, like Ukraine, for a good example, the United States, the United Kingdom, Germany, and so on. But moving on from that and a little bit towards the area of Buhrovodka, we also got to see that the Ukrainian 71st Jaeger Brigade ended up knocking out a Russian turtle tank that was seen near the area. I just want to keep in mind, though, that while this is just a turtle tank and it is getting destroyed, one has to marvel at where this thing was destroyed, and I'll show y'all why on Google Maps. When we go up here to Vovchansk, this thing was destroyed near Buhrovodka. We believe that it was actually destroyed somewhere around this road. That thing had to end up crawling over land that had no roads through the forest somehow, which tanks really don't fare well in forests at all. It somehow made it through all of these obstacles to get destroyed right here. That is pitiful, but nevertheless, it's kind of funny when you think about it. But I don't even know why in the world a tank made it down here, but it got destroyed nonetheless. So we can see the Ukrainian FPV drone coming on in, hitting the engine bay, and knocking out the turtle tank. Also,
Isn't that crazy? They went through all that trouble of like putting all that siding on the new Bliatmobile or the Russian Haas, whatever you want to call it. And even at that, it just takes still one drone to take the thing out. It was literally a waste of time.
Oh my, did you see that, Matthew? The first one hit the engine bay and disabled the vehicle and knocked it out. But at the same time when the explosion happened, it knocked the back door of the turtle off. So when the next drone came up, they literally had an open shot view straight to the back of the turret like they normally would have. So they just flew it right into the back of the turret as per standard procedure. Nuts. Oh, and now it's on fire.
All they did was literally put an oven on top of the turret by like enclosing it like that.
Man, I think Russian ovens are far more effective than Dutch ovens. I'll tell you that at this point. But moving on from that little clip, very nice to see the 71st Jaeger Brigade was able to conduct a very nice strike and knock out that Russian main battle tank. Sadly, we don't know what variant it was, but it was a turtle in the weirdest of areas, Buhrovatka, which is also showing that they are trying to spread out their armor a little bit. And that is showing that this isn't trying to create a sanitary zone. This is actually trying to push or create a breakthrough somewhere that they could exploit. And even then, the Russians are getting no success at all. Meanwhile, in the other direction near Lukyansk and Leboke, we got to see that another turtle tank was also hit hard in this area. Correction, that is a duplicate clip. So we're actually going to get rid of this one because it did happen at Buhrovatka like we found earlier. Meanwhile, we got the major news that in the Ukrainian higher circles, which is truly something amazing, something incredible. We were able to hear that Ukraine is actually planning to conduct a counterattack. And let me get y'all to this news so that y'all can see it and y'all can confirm it's real. According to Nexta, which does get a good amount of news from the Ukrainian government, and we can trust them as a source, Ukraine plans counterattack in the Kharkiv region. The Ukrainian army has announced plans for counterattacks to push back Russian troops who have seized territory in the northeastern Kharkiv region. This is big news, and a great thing that we can talk about because they got rid of the OPSEC requirement by saying that this is where the offensive is going to happen. But the plan is that now that Ukrainian forces have contained the offensive, clearly they have a numbers advantage, or at least they have an advantage of superiority in one form or another. And going off of that advantage, they are now going to leverage this to drive the Russians from the fields of northeastern Kharkiv and back across the border. Saying something like this publicly shows that the Ukrainian government has a high enough level of confidence in their defensive positions that they're already moving into offensive posturing and are planning on pushing the Russians out. Of course, many people are probably wondering, why in the world would they say something like that to the public? You know, won't the Russians already know? The Russians probably already have a really good idea that a counteroffensive is coming, considering how quickly this offensive failed and then was halted in its tracks. The obvious thing would be that a counteroffensive is coming. But he is also showing that the Ukrainians are so confident in their defensive positions and how the situation is going at the moment that they are stating that there will be a counteroffensive. And a lot of people are saying, well, that could be a bluff just to make it look like things are going good. Not the case, because in Bakhmut and Avdiivka, we never heard the Ukrainian armed forces say that things are going so good, we're going to conduct a counterattack and drive them from the city of Bakhmut. We did hear near Bakhmut that they were going to conduct a counterattack and drive the Russians away from the flanks around the city, which the Ukrainians ended up achieving, but we never heard them say anything about retaking the city. This counteroffensive in this area that's being planned, they have clear intentions that they're not just going to push and maybe take back some of the land. They plan on wiping the Russians out in this area and pushing them completely across the border back into Russia. If they can do something like this, that is going to be absolutely impressive. If they can't do something like this, well, you know, they still gave it a shot, and it probably was a very worthwhile effort. But nevertheless, a lot of people have been wondering, should Ukraine let Russia wear themselves down first before the Ukrainians try and conduct this counteroffensive, or should the Ukrainians go headlong into the Russian offensive while it may still be at its strongest. That's a relative term because it's not really strong right now, but it could be at its strongest even at its weakest, if you'll get what I'm saying. Should they already start conducting the counteroffensive as soon as possible, or let Russian momentum and efforts die down or dwindle and then conduct the counteroffensive at that point in this area? A lot of people have many different ideas about what should happen up here, and what in the world should the Ukrainian armed forces do in response to the Russians and this declaration that they will be conducting a counteroffensive. And a lot of people have weighed in on this. And Matthew, what are people saying about it, and what are you thinking about it?
All right, so on the topic of a potential Ukrainian counterattack in the Kharkiv area, the question is, should Ukraine let Russia wear themselves down first or go in for the offensive? It looks like about 48% said they should let Russia wear themselves down before launching that offensive, and it looks like 35% said the counterattack should go on right now and strike them hard, and 12% said I need more intel first. And on this one, me personally, this is just my opinion on the matter, because I think you really couldn't go wrong either way, to be perfectly honest. But if it were me, I would probably counterattack right now and strike Russia while they're already hurting, because this offensive has already failed that Russia launched on Kharkiv. That's been admitted by the Ukrainians and also the Russians themselves that it's not gone well. The losses have been extremely high, and we've seen that in the daily casualty reports as well, and it's not going good for Russia whatsoever. So while Russia is hurting right now and losing a lot of men, if Ukraine can afford the manpower, I say go for it right now and attack. It's better to be on the offensive than constantly being on the defensive, in my opinion. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that I believe that, like Matthew said, there's no wrong answer. But if I had to give one and say that this is what I believe should happen, I would believe that a Ukrainian counteroffensive should happen while the Russians are still in the area and still have some momentum behind them right now. It would be better for the Ukrainians on more so of a timetable reason, but there will be most likely higher casualties because of this act of conducting the offensive earlier, while the Russians may still have munitions or supplies behind them, at least a small amount, versus waiting for later when they're completely exhausted and then pretty much just driving them from the field while they're exhausted. That could lead to Ukraine having higher casualties. However, we do have to keep in mind the strategic situation of the front lines at the moment. We do know that the Russians are going to most likely be planning, according to Ukrainian intelligence and possible U.S. intelligence, another offensive within another area. We don't know if this is going to occur within Sumy or the Chernihiv Oblast, coming from the Bryansk and Kursk regions, or if this is going to occur somewhere down in Bakhmut, Avdiivka, or the southern front. What we do know, however, is that another Russian offensive probably will be coming around the corner, and it would be better for the Ukrainians to be able to free up their forces in northern Kharkiv by defeating the Russians in this area, pushing them back across the border, and then taking all of these units, which really made up the Ukrainian strategic reserve or the rear guard, and then moving them back into the area of Donetsk, the Dnipro area, and northern Zaporizhia, so that way they can be ready to respond to anything that'll be coming around the corner anytime soon, or even the offensives that may happen in Sumy or Chernihiv on in the future. I would say that it would be a lot better to take the initiative now, and also not only for the strategic reason, but for the morale reason as well. We do know that Russian morale is low, and we also know that the Russian public's morale behind the war isn't really as steadfast or as strong as it used to be. And so if the Ukrainians are able to decisively defeat the Russian forces in the field and rout them from northeastern Kharkiv, this may be a major morale blow, not only to the Russian public, but also to all of those Russian soldiers still in Ukraine in the southeastern region, because now they're going to start seeing that the future of the Russian army is not a bright one at all. Not even anything a propagandist could say would make it seem bright, because they would have been pushed off the field while they were still kind of in their heyday of the offensive, at least. Although it's already going so poorly, there never really was a heyday. But still, I hope that does address that the best I can, in my opinion. I believe that a counteroffensive should happen sooner rather than later, and it could only help the Ukrainians. It really couldn't hurt them, whether they did it later or right now. But meanwhile, we did see that the Russians have been apparently infuriated so much by the failures of the Russian army inside of the northeastern area of Kharkiv that they have decided to strike the hypermarket inside of Kharkiv. The hypermarket was one of the major malls within the city of Kharkiv, and from what we can see, it was stricken by several Russian bombs, D-30 bombs, and there were hundreds of Ukrainian civilians inside of the building when it was stricken. Unfortunately, I don't think I've been able to get an official official casualty number at the moment, but nevertheless, there are many who are dead, many more who have been reported wounded, and once again, it is another crime against humanity that was conducted by the Russian Federation against the Ukrainian people. I will be showing you all this clip right here, which is security camera footage from just across from the hypermart, but you see the first explosion, a second explosion right there, sending debris up into the sky, and once again, completely leveling the mall with hundreds of civilians inside.
I had heard, by the way, that the Russians had literally chosen the busiest time of the day to strike this place as well, when they knew the most people would be inside of it, and then that's when they struck it with the missiles.
That's what I heard as well, and it seems that it was a sick thing that the Russians have done again, making sure to try and strike fear into the Ukrainian public and kill as many innocent civilians as they possibly could. And we can see another angle of that explosion right here.
And also, the Russian propagandists were having such a hard time even trying to justify the strike today that they were literally like bending and twisting to come up with justifications for it. I heard one propagandist say that there was a major ammo depot right there in the middle of the supermarket, which is obviously false. That's not the way it works. If there's a major ammo depot in there, then why are the civilians going in there to go shop? That wouldn't make any sense. So it's just not even the Russians can really defend this one. It's just a war crime all the way around.
Well, see, I'm trying to find the hypermarket. And there's actually a lot of them. I believe it may be this one, if I'm correct. Let's see here. I think it might be this one. I'm not entirely sure, however, and it doesn't really look like it's lining up with other buildings. We do know that it was within the area of the city of Kharkiv. Sadly, though, I can't really find it, because when I typed in a hypermarket near Kharkiv, it pulled up about 12 of them. But nevertheless...
It's called the Epicenter hypermarket in Kharkiv.
Let's see. Let me type that in. Epicenter hypermarket. Well, that one's in Kyiv. Let's see if we can find it in Kharkiv. So let's see. Here's an epicenter right up here, and this one's temporarily closed. It actually looks like it was under construction when this was made. Let's see here. Closed. Opens 9 a.m. Opens 10 a.m. I believe this is the one, because while it was in construction in the satellite clip, it does appear that it was close to the area, possibly, and not only that, this one is saying that it's temporarily closed, as opposed to closed and having a normal opening hour tomorrow, which would suggest that this was the one that was most likely hit. Let's see if we can get a satellite view from the ground to see if the building had been constructed, and let's see if we can line that up with some of the footage right here. Let's see, there was a red building nearby, so let's see here. Where in the world would that have been? So here's the front of the epicenter. That looks kind of like it, but not quite. Is there a light pole? No, the light poles are different at this one. So let's go to the next epicenter over here, and this might be it. I'm believing this. Let's drop down in the parking lot. Let's see if the light fixtures are the same that we saw in that other clip, and they might be. Let's see, does that look like the front of that epicenter? We can't see. Well, yes, this is the epicenter that we're looking for right here, because we could see the little light fixtures that we were seeing over here. We could see them in the clip right here. We can also see the parking lot's the same. We could see that the building appears to have the same layout. There's a truck in the middle of the parking lot, but we can see this very... I guess you could call it iconic blue and white stripe kind of a paint job to the building, and we can see that on the right side right here, along with the same epicenter logo in the center, on the same kind of white facing. So this is the exact same building. It is identical. And also we can see some sort of a garage or something over to the right side, which we can see over there out of view. But nevertheless, this is the epicenter that was hit, and so we're going to be showing that one to y'all all once again. This is where the epicenter store was that got hit. It's in the middle of the city of Kharkiv, from what we can tell, in its northeastern side. So one of the, I guess you could say, one of the many downtowns that Kharkiv would have, and it was hit directly dead on in the center. There is really no way to justify the strike, like Matthew was saying. Russian propagandists are trying, but there really is no way, because if we click on this store, there are loads of pictures showing this may as well just be the Ukrainian equivalent of a Walmart. There isn't really going to be any ammunition storage happening in this building, and if there was, there would have been secondary explosions which were never seen. So once again, another
it looks like the Ukrainian version of like a Home Depot or a home improvement store or something, based on the pictures right here. It's like, how the hell? It's like, that's like if for example, an enemy country decided to strike a Home Depot here in America. It's like, how the hell is that a military target? It's like, that's just bull.
It is bull, and the Russians are just up to their usual crap again. It's disappointing to think that that Ukrainian citizens have to unnecessarily be killed and wounded because the Russians have ego issues, and because their offensive is failing just north of the city, they decided to go ahead and just start slamming bombs down in an epicenter in the middle of Kharkiv, which makes no sense at all. It's once again a complete crime against humanity, and one day the Russians will be held responsible for this stuff. I would hope so, at least. But right now, once again, atrocities clearly being seen by the Russians, another crime against humanity, and with no end in sight. However, the Ukrainians were able to get back at the Russians just a little bit for what happened here. We were able to hear that just right before the stream started, that apparently a group of Iranian mercenaries who had moved into the area of Belgorod ended up getting stricken by Ukrainian fire and wiped out. We were able to see a little bit of a video of the fire that had been caused by the explosions. And we see a whole bunch of people gathering around. And then moving on into the next clip, we can see the fire from quite some distance. It appears to be burning quite brightly. But nevertheless, it is nice to see that the Ukrainians were able to strike back and knock out Iranian mercenaries that were going to be fighting on the side of the Russian Federation, because while the Russians are underhanded and always try and hit military, well, really more so civilian targets and try and say that they're military, Ukraine actually does end up hitting military targets most, if not all, the time. And we can see some cars burning here as secondary hits as well. These Iranian mercenaries look a lot like their president at this point.
Ah, okay. Are they going to be called martyrs now too? It's Martyr Raisi and now it's Martyr Iranian fighter killers.
It's going to be martyr murders. That's what they're going to call them. But with that, that's the end of that clip. And a lot of people have been talking about the strike on the epicenter inside of Kharkiv. And a lot of people are saying that that Ukraine striked Belgorod after Russia destroyed a shopping center, the epicenter in northeastern Kharkiv. And they're not just saying that, that's actually a fact, and we just covered that right then and there. And a lot of people are wondering, are Ukraine's attacks justified in response to the attack on the epicenter? And that's keeping in mind that the Ukrainians are striking military targets in Belgorod and are not striking civilian targets as a response. And a lot of people have been weighing in that Ukraine's response is justified. Some people are saying that Ukraine can't strike near civilians at all. Some people are saying it depends on the fine print. Some other people are saying that they're not really sure. But Matthew, what are people thinking about this, and what are you thinking about it as well?
All right, so after we just literally saw that attack by the Russians next to a civilian area right there in the Home Depot type building it was, with civilians packed in it, Ukraine struck Belgorod today as revenge. And the question is, are Ukraine's attacks justified? 72% believe they are justified, while 14% said no, Ukraine can't strike anywhere near civilians, and 11% said it depends on all the fine details. And to me, if it's a military target, I say smash the hell out of it. Ukraine has every right in the world to hit military targets because it's a war, and nothing is barred from that except for civilian targets. That's the only thing that Ukraine cannot hit. And then me personally, I'll never really justify hitting civilian targets unless there's a very, very unique set of circumstances. Like, for example, the Russian military might be hiding within a civilian target. That might be a little bit different. But traditionally speaking, no civilian targets are on the table for Ukraine, in my opinion. But it looks like all the targets in Belgorod that have been hit by Ukraine are military. So I support that 100%. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would support it 100% as well. It does not matter if it's in a civilian area, as long as the target is military and as long as the collateral is minimized as much as possible, then that is completely acceptable. A lot of people are saying no civilian targets. I completely agree with that. I do not believe that Ukraine should try and get blood for blood. So say if 50 Ukrainian civilians get killed, Ukraine drops an ATACMS missile into the middle of Belgorod and kills about 100 Russian civilians, that would not be right. And that would be a violation of the rules of war as well. But let's say that that attack happened on the epicenter, and then Ukraine slams a drone into a house filled with Iranian mercenaries that are about to be moving into Ukraine and kills them before they can make it there. Although it was surrounded with civilian buildings, that was a military target, and that was completely justified, and I would say that going off of that, there is absolutely nothing that should be stopping the Ukrainians from striking military targets. I believe that that kind of revenge is justified, and it's making sure to stay within the scope of the rules of war, which is something that we always need to make sure to keep in mind. Also, another thing that I was noticing when we zoomed in on Belgorod is that there are a lot of almost American-style suburbs around Belgorod. Did you notice that, Matthew, with like how the road layouts are and everything?
Yeah, it's like full-on like neighborhoods out here.
What in the world do they look like? Oh my god.
Oh, wow.
What the hell
That's not
is
the
this?
traditional neighborhood. They have curbs, though.
Dude, this is like the backrooms liminal space crap. Like, it's like, what the hell is this stuff? Dude, if I lived in this neighborhood, I'd die. Like, literally. Like, this is horrendous. Like, no fences, no property barriers, no one even is mowing. Like, man, mowing actually does a lot to make things look better, but this is horrendous. I've never seen anything like that. But anyways, we're going to be moving on from that ungodly sight. I don't even know what in the world to say about that or what to comprehend with it, but we're going to be moving on from that. And on back out of Belgorod and on back down into the area of Kharkiv. Actually, you know what? More so, we're going to move to Moscow really quickly, because while we know that Ukraine does strike military targets inside of the Russian Federation, it appears that the Russian central government is a little scared that they might end up hitting some government buildings inside of Moscow. And so they ended up setting up some anti-drone nets around Moscow, like literal just massive anti-drone nets. May as well be a Topgolf that you flipped over sideways with the amount of nets that they're putting up. It's a huge amount, and we don't know what it's protecting here. We didn't really get any good details on that, but we did get to see that apparently they are setting up a lot of nets. Don't really know what to make of that, but still, it is showing that the Russians are filled with fear about Ukrainian drone strikes and the links that these Ukrainian drones can reach into Russia, and not only that, effectively hit their targets and destroy them. But moving on from that, out of Moscow, just as a quick little side note, and moving on down into our location unknowns, we actually had a pretty good amount of them today, and we were able to see, again, another type of Ukrainian ground drone. This one is apparently a heavy machine gun tractor, is the best thing I can describe it as. It is able to move around. It has an articulated body, and it's able to use a 14.2 millimeter heavy machine gun. You would see something like this normally on a BRDM2 scout car, but they were able to fit this thing onto this like wheeled tractor and move it around and use it this way, which is pretty interesting to look at. But we can see here them showing it off. They're now firing it right here.
Man, I'm telling you, when they put a huge gun like that on a robot or an ATV or something, you just can't beat that. That is so cool.
It is really cool, man. And also, I like that it's articulated. It just allows for a little extra maneuverability, you know?
It's like a Volvo dump truck.
Man, they got that dump truck. But we can see it getting some pretty accurate results as well downrange. Look at that. When it fires, it's got a fairly good spread. I mean, it's not that far of a spread. That would be very effective at suppressive fire. But with that, that's the end of the clip, and really nice to see one of Ukraine's newer ground drones that they're still testing out. Moving on from that and into the next clip, we also got to see the Russians once again showing off their technical genius. Observe.
Значит, вот примерно такая ванна с водой. Вода должна быть обязательно. Это первое условие. Вот. Потом делаем вдоль пропила. Вот вдоль всего.
So, Matthew, why is the mortar shell in a small bathtub?
I guess it got dirty.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Oh no!
We're just putting an angle grinder up to the bomb. Like we're just cutting open a bomb with an angle grinder. I wonder.
I want to guess this in a million years, man. If you were about to tell me this, I was like, "Why is it in the bathtub?" Like, I didn't see the angle grinder coming. That was a shock.
Dude, you sat there. You went, "I don't know. Maybe it was dirty." I was like, "Oh, you don't even know." Like, it's like you don't even know what's about to be coming around the corner here.
Oh my god.
Аккуратно, не спеша. Периодически шов промачиваем водой, чтобы давать немножечко остыть снаряду. А после распила снаряда...
Now they're getting out the chisel and hammer,
no.
and now they're
Getting
gonna
worse.
beat it on open.
После пропила снаряда с двух сторон берется тоже ванночка, зубильца, молоточек и такими вот
What's the
нехитрыми
point?
движениями.
I don't even know. Like, I have no clue. But I had to show this clip to y'all because once I saw it, I was like, this is a kind of idiocy that would make it onto America's Funniest Home Videos if it was like rated X, because people's guts would be flying after this thing blew up. I don't know why they're doing this. I don't know why the mortar round is in a bathtub. I don't know why in the world they put an angle grinder to it. And I don't know why in the world they have a chisel and a hammer and they're trying to crack it open like some kind of a geostone, a geode or something like that. I have no idea why they're doing all this. But it was hilarious to watch. And so that's why I had to show it to y'all.
Колется снаряд на...
Someone just said that's some redneck stuff. How dare you? Like, how dare you insult the freaking rednecks? The rednecks are smarter than this. The rednecks, listen, folks. Rednecks just sound ignorant, but they are actually incredibly smart people. Like if you actually run into rednecks, the kind of ingenuity that they have is truly profound. This, however, is just stupidity. I've never seen anything like this before in my life.
на две части.
But that's the end of the clip. We don't know if they blew up. I'm guessing maybe they somehow didn't because the video is out in the world now. But moving on from that and into our next clip, we also got to see what remains of a BMP-3 after its ammo detonated. Do y'all want to know what's left of a BMP-3 after it blows up? I'll show you. Pieces. The answer is pieces. Man, dude, I sat there. Did you see that in the chat, Matthew? Someone called Jonathan Dickinson. I show a video of the Russians using an angle grinder like it's an actual video. This guy said, this video is bullshit. It's like, what? You know,
I agree. It is. It really is a bunch of BS because I've never seen anybody try to chisel open a munition like that.
How many OSHA rules did they violate doing that? They didn't even have like proper safety gear. They didn't like. It's just the absurdity of these people. It's bullshit. I'd agree.
Bunch of Bolshevik.
Man, bunch of Bolshevik. You know what I mean? But we can still see more pieces of the BMP.
This is like somebody's farm or something like that.
Clarkson's farm. And oh look, here's a hatch from the back of the BMP.
БМП-3.
Blown off its hinges.
Любимая из машин. Надеюсь, ты теперь ездишь на лучших танкодромах. Только на танкодромах.
Man, this Russian sounds like he's about to say, make me a hinge. But beyond that, moving on from this clip and on into our next one, we also got to see that there was some new equipment that's been given to the Ukrainian Air Force. According to what we know, these are U.S.-supplied GBU-39 SBD precision-guided glide bombs. And we got to see a couple of them mounted onto the bottom of a MiG-29 right here. And here's a picture of one in use. You can actually see, I would believe that's an A7 an A7 intruder, or it's not an intruder, it's an A7, that's all I know. It's in a hardened shelter, and you can see the bomb, this is the one that the Ukrainians have been given, going through the top of the hardened shelter, passing all the way through it, and then blowing up inside of the hangar itself, destroying the aircraft and everything else inside of the hangar. This is a very nice bomb, innovational at best, and I like it. I respect it, and I love to see this kind of stuff being given to Ukraine, and I hope that they find good use for it in the future. Moving on from that into our next bit of location unknown, we also got to see that the Ukrainians were playing with a little cat. Isn't it cute?
It's the war cat, bliat.
They're having fun. But, you know someone that isn't having fun? The Russians, because the casualty report came out, and we've got reason to celebrate. Everyone, whip out the glasses. The Russians have lost 500,000.
Damn, man, 500,000. And what's crazy is they hit that last night, like at the very end of the stream as well. And 3 Bobcats as well. They had to throw in a little extra.
Man, they just had to throw in a little to smooth it over. You know, a little bit of icing on the cake. Ain't never hurt nobody. But anyways, 1,140 Russian soldiers were wounded and killed today, finally moving the number over 500,000. So this is the first day in the war ever where the casualty report is over 500,000 wounded and killed. Not only that, but 11 armored personnel carriers were destroyed, along with 39 supply trucks, 15 main battle tanks, 27 artillery systems, 4 drones, 2 MLRSs, 1 anti-aircraft warfare system, 3 special equipment vehicles, and that is the entire gamut of losses that the Russians took today. An incredibly high number, and once again, giving us a very clear look into the unbelievable, astronomical losses the Russian army is taking on a day-by-day basis at this point. And that would lead us to believe the Russians are probably going to exhaust their forces quicker than they can be replenished at this point. But with that, it's time for us to start moving on a little bit closer on into the area of the Ukrainian frontline news, as there's been a decent amount of it today. But Russian propagandists have been saying that Putin should have had a nuclear response to the ICBM radar attack that occurred near the Armavir radar station just yesterday, that knocked out Russia's southern-looking ICBM early warning radars that were focused towards the area of Turkey and also towards the rest of the Middle East. A lot of people have been saying that that's just a bunch of hype talk from the Russian propagandists and absolutely nothing will happen. Some people are saying that Putin will escalate in some way, shape, or form because of the Armavir radar station being hit and destroyed. Some people are saying that Putin might suggest this response, and some other people just don't know. But Matthew, what are people thinking, and what are you saying about it as well?
So it looks like about 73% of the people said it's just talk and nothing will happen, while 10% said Putin might suggest the nuclear response, and 14% said Putin will escalate in some type of way, but probably not that one. So to me, you really did not have to be a war analyst to really see this coming. I knew once Ukraine hit that radar system for ICBMs, I knew that the propagandists were going to be coming out and saying that this was an attack on nuclear infrastructure, because that's the only thing they could really say to spin it their way. So, you know, it's not too shocking to me, but I don't think that Putin's going to come out with a nuclear response over this. They may suggest it, they may threaten it, but, you know, they're not going to the nuclear option over a radar being hit. That's just simply not going to happen. So I'm with the 73%. I think it's just talk, a bunch of hype like usual, a lot of hot air from the Russians. But Enforcer, what say you?
It's a bunch of hype talk. They're not going to go and have a nuclear response because their southern-looking radar got knocked out. That would make no sense. And on top of that, it's not like it was actual nuclear infrastructure. It was more so just a very advanced and very sensitive radar relay that just looked towards the Middle East. So I would have to say, it's all talk. Nothing is going to come out of that at all. Period. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. The best I can, I say. And with that, it's time for us to start moving on into that frontline news. But before we do, we got to answer a couple of questions from the chat. And so, Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so first up, we have a very generous $50 donation from Joseph Andronako, who's a longtime channel legend, and thank you very much, Joseph, for that massive support. He says, my daughter came home to take care of me after my wife passed, and I think it may be the other way around. The problem is that she is eating into your pizza funds, and take one from the chat.
Oh, and I hate to hear that, Joseph Andronako. That's terrible. But nevertheless, it's great to know that your daughter's there with you. But, you know, that's how it always is. Hell, our parents complain about us eating into their bills. But nevertheless, we pay for most things. And also pay them rent. So, beyond that, I gotta say, that is funny to know that you're saying it seems like it's the other way around, because our parents say that too. But beyond that, thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. But I hate to hear that your wife passed. I'm not really sure when that happened. If that was recently, I'm terribly sorry. And if that was a while ago, still that's terrible to hear. But nevertheless, I thank you so much once again for finding this channel worthwhile to support and helping us to keep it running. Because hopefully we're able to make sure that folks have a good little bit of time just listening to the news every afternoon. And I hope that we've been able to be one of those folks that fills up your time with at least a little laugh here and there to make times a bit better, Joseph Andronako. But still, thank you for the incredible support and helping this channel to keep on running. Terribly sorry to hear about that, but hey, at least you still have your daughter, and that's got to be a great thing to count on at the bare minimum. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that the best I can. And thank you also, Joseph Andronako, for being a longtime viewer and a channel legend, because you have been around for quite some time. And I would be completely amiss not to point that out and say that you have been here for quite a while, through thick and thin with this channel. And thank you so much once again for being here. And once again, sorry for your loss. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. Thank you so much once again. And we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one is going to go to Jason Carpenter, who's also a longtime channel legend, and he throws in a $30 donation. And thank you very much, Jason, for that support. And he said, "Hi guys, on vacation with my wife, and I just wanted to check in and say hello. And I'm just going to say it: the Russian shed tank is just a busted ass Sturmgeschütz, and you're killing it, bro.
Yeah, killing it, Jerry, killing it. And also, have fun on vacation, Jason Carpenter. I gotta say, it's wonderful to know that you're out there on vacation with your wife. I bet that is fun. And you know something that's kind of funny, Jason Carpenter, that you just brought up, you're on vacation, is that I actually just had someone, I don't know if they were watching tonight, I actually just had someone ask me before the show, how, like, have you ever taken a vacation? Have you ever wanted to take a vacation? You know, considering that your work schedule is kind of, you know, a very strict one. And I was like, no. I was like, we haven't had a vacation. Like, in all honesty, we haven't had a vacation the entire time we've run this channel. Literally not a single day away from the house or from our computers. And let's see. Well, actually, Matthew's had a vacation or two, I think. I have not, because I have to stay here at Enforcer HQ to make sure that the world keeps turning. But Matthew can actually move around and the world will still keep turning. But I'm kind of anchored in place. But even before that, because of the Wuhan whirly-birdie, we ended up not having any vacations then either. And so the last time I took a vacation was literally almost 4 years ago. I have not had a vacation for 4 years, and I've pretty much been right here in this house, right here in the city of Birmingham for 4 straight years without end. Does that seem kind of bad? You know, not really. I mean, like, you know, a lot of people like vacations, but I just realized that my place is right here, and making sure that this channel and this news gets out every single night. And that is better than any vacation that I could ever have. The laugh of pain. But beyond that, I got to say that I hope that you're having a fun one, because unlike me, all of y'all get to take vacations, and I hope y'all have amazing ones and incredible ones. And I hope that it still adds a little bit of an icing on the cake for when y'all take vacations, because I'd hate to know that this is a drag. Like, you know, you're on a vacation and you get on, you're like, it's not that fun anymore. But beyond that, hello to you, Jason Carpenter. I hope you're doing well down there, and it's great to know that you just wanted to hop in and say hey. And also, it does kind of look a little bit like a Sturmgeschütz. Let me go get a Stug really quickly to show y'all. So, der Stug. Let me go get a good picture of a Stug, because I want one with the side skirts, because I think that would be the best one that we're looking for. Where are all the ones with the side skirts, y'all? Where are they?
Also, by the way, I see some people saying, wasn't that Texas trip a mini vacation for me? As I said in the live chat, I said I haven't had a vacation either. And honestly, that Texas thing was literally one day. I drove there and drove back the next day. It was really for business. It really wasn't a vacation. And I only got to literally stop it in and out. That was like the only thing I got to do out there, and drive through like North Dallas, and that was it. So no, not really a vacation. It wasn't very calming either. So I kind of came back from that kind of like needing a vacation from that quote unquote vacation. And so no, I haven't gotten a trip either. But at least I'm mobile though.
And then Matthew has probably the most oppressive boss ever, which is me. Because then I'm like, we got to get to work. I'm like, no vacations ever, period. We're working. And so there are no vacations. It's just endless work behind the scenes. And a lot of people are like, well, don't you get Mondays off? Not really, not anymore. Because during law school, we actually meant like Mondays are off, because we would still be going to law school those days, and then we would get off and maybe have just like 4 or 5 hours of free time, and I literally would do nothing during those 4 to 5 hours. And I was hardly keeping sane even then. But nowadays, with our Mondays, we usually use that time off where we're not running a show to do all other kinds of things. We try and make sure to work on our merchandising logistics, to try and work on things behind behind the scenes on the Patreon, on video projects, trying to come up with things to do in the future. And then maybe sometimes I'll go out and do something with some friends, or we'll just hang out and do something ourselves. But very rarely do we get a vacation. But we are going into like a deep dive on the habits of vacations and stuff, and why we don't have vacations, and what we have that kind of comes close to vacations. But still, nevertheless, thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because it is only possible thanks to folks like you, Jason Carpenter. And now I was able to get a good picture of a Stug. It's from War Thunder, though, so no one flip out and say it's from a video game, because it is, but that is the Stug. And I would say, I think I see where you're coming from, because now that the turret is immobile and the entire thing is covered with a whole load of really just spaced armor, is what that turtle shell is, it kind of does look like a Stug. But the Stug is tiny. Like, it is so small compared to a T-72 or a T-80. It's actually a pretty tiny little vehicle, because it was based, I believe, on the Panzer III, if I'm right, which wasn't that big of a medium tank in its own right. But still, I would agree with you, Jason Carpenter. I think the turtle tank is the modern version of the Stug. It may as well be moving itself away from a main battle tank and back into the role of a tank destroyer of sorts. But still, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope we were able to address that entire super chat incredibly well, Jason Carpenter, and thank you so much once again, because if it wasn't for folks like you who supported this channel and helped us to keep this thing running, we wouldn't be able to make it possible. And so thank you massively, and I hope we were able to address that. And with that, we are on to the last question of the segment, and then we're going to be moving on into that frontline news.
All right, and this one is going to go to Steve Watkins at work, yet another channel legend, and he also threw in a massive $50 donation, and thank you very much, Steve, for that massive support as well, and helping to keep us running. He says, a time for a little boost to your coffers, and to keep up the good work.
The coffers. Man,
Coffers.
man, what you call your gang in East London? I call them the bloody coffers. because we going around and we hacking it up. But beyond that, I gotta say, thank you so much for the support, Steve Watkins at work. And I gotta say, in my personal opinion, thank you for supporting our coffers. Because if it wasn't for folks who supported the Enforcer War Chest, we wouldn't be able to keep the Lee Spring Army running. We wouldn't be able to keep this channel running, which is really the Lee Spring Army in its own right. We wouldn't be able to keep it running and rolling. And I gotta say, thank you so much once again for supporting this channel, Steve Watkins at work, and helping this channel to be possible, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to be here right now, and we wouldn't be able to talk about the news and just kid around and joke around and do all kinds of things like that. But nevertheless, thank you so much once again for just wanting to support the channel for the hell of it, and putting that towards the Everything Fund. And to be quite honest, the Everything Fund is probably going to go towards video projects. I'm praying, y'all, that we can actually get to the legitimate video projects I want to get to, because I do want to create longer form videos that talk about more in-depth things. It's just that takes time, which we really don't have much of, and it also will take funds, which we also, at least in that category, are still working towards, because it may be a good bit. But with that, thank you so much once again for support, Steve Watkins at work, and thank you for helping this channel to keep on running, because it is folks like you who help to make this thing possible, and I thank you greatly for being one of those people through and through, and being a big member of the Lee Spring Army. And so with that, thank you so much once again. And also, by the way, I wanted to give a huge shout out to Andy L. and JMP Traveler. We will not be able to address y'all's questions now, because we want to make sure to get back to the news for y'all and make sure to tell y'all what's been going on. But we will get to both of them before the stream rounds out. We will make sure to address every single live chat, but I wanted to make sure to let y'all know that we saw that, and a massive shout out to both of y'all for the incredible support. But moving on from that and on into the area of northeastern Ukraine, specifically the area in between Luhansk and Kharkiv, we were able to see a Ukrainian medical convoy near the front. Also, I want to make it clear, while our ears were blasted out by that beautiful music, there were no frontline changes in this area, so this is pretty much a static area of the front, so we're just going to be showing the clips. But we can see the medical convoy here, we can see the ambulance MTLB right there. And that's the end of the clip, but really nice to see. Moving on from that and on into our next clip, we also got to see the Battle of Kupyansk from United 24, which was a very interesting insight into the battles that are occurring just a couple of dozen miles away east of Kupyansk, which is where this clip was located on the map. And so, without further ado, here is the video from United 24 talking about the battle for Kupyansk.
Гроза, як прийняв прийом. 24-й, то мій 24-й, блядь.
The situation at the Ukrainian front line remains very difficult at the moment. The enemy is on the assault towards two main directions, Chasiv Yar and Ocheretine. But this summer only more assaults are expected, and one of the possible directions for this is the city of Kupyansk, Kharkiv region. The past 5 days, the tension on the front lines here only arises, so we wanted to meet with the soldiers who fly over these areas to see what's going on.
We arrived in this area relatively recently, and now the active phase has begun.
Escobar? No way. Is that Pablo?
Yo, Pablo, is that you?
Man, they say that this man moves tons, and it's not tons of cocaine, it's tons of Russian tanks. But anyways,
They say he's bricked up.
Man, they say this man right here, when he comes into the front lines, the Russians get out on a snow day.
Oh, no.
I'm just kidding. Anyways, getting back to the video.
Our main focus is surveillance to monitor and prevent any sudden enemy breakthroughs. If we identify any valuable equipment, our guys will engage with the FPV drones. Realistically, drone strikes are more effective than artillery strikes, even financially speaking, because we're much more likely to hit the target with a drone.
Escobar is disappointed by the number of artillery shells fired by Ukrainian troops in his area. The unit uses Ukrainian-made Valkyria and Leleka winged UAVs to spot enemy troops and equipment. But what they detect often remains untargeted for days. Massive offensives are being stopped north of Kharkiv and in the Donetsk region. That's why the US military aid hasn't reached this area to the fullest extent.
Ooh!
This section
Dang, Toeman the First, thank you!
for
Goodness
US
gracious!
skill. During the Kharkiv counteroffensive in 2022, Ukrainian troops quickly pushed the enemy back across the river and then even successfully crossed it. Currently, a skill is rather playing into the hands of the occupants. They are destroying the crossings, which complicates the logistics for the Ukrainian army on the left bank. All across the front line, the Ukrainian forces are building second and third lines of defense that include such casualties or trenches system. And Kupyansk direction isn't an exception to that. If the worst case scenario happens and the first line is breached, the troops know where to retreat. To get the bigger picture, we visited the command post of a battalion defending the front line around Kupyansk. When we go inside, we are greeted by laughter. Although there is nothing funny about what is happening. Since early morning, the battalion commander and his subordinates have been leading the repulsion of the Russian assault. For a week now, the enemy has been actively trying to break through the defense in this area.
The enemy attempted to storm one of our positions with 6 soldiers. We repelled the assault with small arms fire and FPV drone strikes. The enemy suffered losses. 1 soldier retreated wounded, and the rest were killed in action. Over the past few days, we faced 2 or 3 attacks daily from different directions, with enemy groupings ranging in size from 6 to 20 soldiers.
A lot of things are happening.
Man, this battalion
On
HQ
screen you
is
see-
actually pretty nice for it being a bunker in the ground.
It is. They got like the nice boards up on the wall, man. Like this is nicer than like my desk set up in here. Then
Yeah.
it's just like a war bunker.
Yeah, dude, I mean, this is really nice. Like, honestly, man, this almost looks like a movie set that this headquarters is. And also, they blurred out the giant map that they have of the area over there. But they have a giant map of too. I mean, this looks nice. I like it.
A group of Russians taking away a wounded man. An FPV drone flies right into them. But unfortunately, the projectile does not explode. What a spectacle it would have been. At the same time, the drone spots a group of enemy helicopters in the sky.
Так, всі в укриття, вертуха йде. Дві. Стрімер, Ерніч. О, присіли БТРу, там де ти приблизно...
Гроза, як прийняв прийом.
Тобто наші.
Ні, то 24-й, то Мі-24-й, блядь.
From the sky, you can also see the results of the soldiers' work over the past week. The trenches are littered with bodies and their parts. We are told that in this short period, the enemy has lost at least 50 people.
That's
Then
a
the
lot.
assault comes down, and we can ask the commander how he sees the situation developing in this area.
Тяжко щось сказати на майбутнє.
It's tough to predict what's going to happen next, but the enemy will keep trying. They have plenty of soldiers. They're practically being herded to the slaughter. We're holding the line and inflicting as much damage as possible. We want to deplete their manpower. So far, we're managing.
If you like what they are doing, please consider supporting the units in the video by following the QR on the screen or in the description to the video. Thanks.
And that's the end of that clip right there. But nice to see United 24 showing us a little bit about the units that are still conducting the defensive actions near to Kupyansk and are doing such an incredible job that most of the time we just quickly skirt over this area of the front lines because there's absolutely no changes. The Russians are continuously attempting to push their way towards the area of Kupyansk, and yet the front lines hardly move inch by inch per day, or hardly at all most days. Moving on from that and into our next clip, we also got to see further down the line near Makiivka, a Ukrainian Technical that was made on top of a Peugeot Landtrek pickup truck.
Look at that. That is crazy.
Man, look at that, dude. It honestly looks like a normal American pickup that they put a machine gun on the back of. It's like, that's kind of cool. I don't know if I like it or dislike it, but it's a Technical of the modern age.
I think I like it, actually. I mean, the truck, like, you know, they use what they've got, but the truck could be a little bit more beefy. But I guess, you know, this one works. It works. I'm not sure what kind of, like, truck make that really is, though. It kind of looks like maybe a Mitsubishi. Oh, you said a Peugeot?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I said that earlier. You're like, I don't know what the make is. Man, you can see the giant
I've never heard of a
line.
Peugeot truck, that's for sure.
You know something I had never heard about, Matthew, until I saw, like, and you've heard me talking about this, a clip from Clarkson's farm is that Lamborghini still made tractors. I didn't know that they still made them. Like,
yeah, they definitely make tractors still. They make some of the big ones, like the really big tractors.
Dude, and they look sweet. Like, I was like, these things look really nice. But anyways, Peugeot does make a pickup truck. I don't know why, Matthew, because I think, does Peugeot even do anything outside of the European market? Because from what I understand, pickups are non-existent pretty much in Europe.
Oh, no. Those pickups are still in Europe. They're not nearly as prevalent as they are in the United States. Mainly the mid-sized pickup. The smaller ones like this are prevalent over there, if you can call them prevalent. But in the U.S. market, our version of a pickup is literally like, you know, a barge, like a full-on pickup.
We need to shrink them back down in size. I say we start a petition here in the States to pass a law. I'm not getting political or anything, but I say that we start a law or an act moving through Congress that starts to shrink down the pickup trucks back to the size of a Toyota Hilux. That was back when trucks were in their golden age, in my opinion. I'm just saying the big ones are cool, but I think they're getting a little bit too big nowadays. I mean, it's ridiculously huge. But anyways, moving on from that and out of that area of the front line where that cool Technical was, we also got to see that down near Belgorod, a Russian attack was attempted today, but the infantry push failed completely. And we were able to see this all on film. Here is the clip.
Давай, чуть-чуть осталось. Запрыгивай. Голову обходи слевее. Давай, переходи. Пошел.
We see them continuing to advance. We hear sporadic rifle fire in the distance. And we now see him firing at a drone. We can't really see it on camera. But we can hear everyone yelling out that there is a drone. This man sounds like me after I climbed about 10 flights of stairs. see them now making it into the trench. By the way, just a reminder, everyone, this is from the Russian perspective. These are Russian soldiers. You see them moving down the trench. We hear a drone. We see them continuing to move down the trench line. We see a large amount of garbage showing that this is most likely a Russian position. Also, these trenches are not dug deep. They're about waist deep. Oh, and we can see something blew up right near them. We also hear the drone continuing to fly overhead. And we now see him reloading. Oh, I can't tell if they shot down the drone right there or what. It looks like it may have been shot down.
Вон еще одна висит. Дема, Дема!
You see them continuing to make their way on down. This is like the never-ending trench to nowhere. Like they just keep going. Oh, we hear a drone again.
Давай дальше чистим. Наша, блядь, наша. Давай, пошли, пацаны.
Это шестая уже?
Да, это чисто. Какая?
Шестая?
Не знаю, чисто. Дальше, надо до 8, брат. Братан, чистая ячейка.
We see an explosion up ahead. Maybe a mortar? Goodbye, John. But we can see the Russians continuing to move down the trench. We also hear what appears to be cluster rounds.
I'm not gonna lie, like, this is a hell of a lot more intimidating than when the Russians attacked the Ukrainians. Like, the Ukrainians know how to bring up the heat.
Man, the Russians just kind of are like, I don't know what they're doing. It doesn't really seem like they have a plan, yeah.
Like the herd being brought to the slaughter, like the other guy said.
Все.
I would agree.
Стоп.
Ooh, and oh, they're taking direct rifle fire.
They're screwed. They're done.
In the middle of nowhere, too. Can't really tell if the first guy got hit or what, because that was really close to him. And we now see that they, after a little bit, they've gotten back up and they're back on the move again.
Понял, пошел, как дальше? Следующее право наше. Пацаны, свои!
We see them continuing to move down the trench. And also, we're seeing a massive slag heap in front of them. And this could give us a pretty good idea of where they are. So let's go to Belgorod, and let's try and find out exactly where they were when this clip was filmed. So here's Belgorod. This appears to be the slag heap. So let me drop down. Maybe we can get a picture of this from the ground. Is this the heap? This looks like the heap to me. I mean, we're kind of on it in this picture, so a little bit harder to tell. Maybe we can find a local road that can look out into the distance. Maybe here. Well, let's see if we can see the heap from here. Because the heaps are pretty damn big. We should be able to see it from a distance, if I can orient myself the right way. So there is Verkno Kamyanka. So I believe this would be behind us, if we could see it. And there is tree cover, literally right where we're supposed to be looking. So let me try and find another view, another angle, maybe right here. Because it looks like it may be around this heap, but I have to check and double check and triple check. So that's it. Yeah, they're around this heap somewhere, and I'm assuming that they're probably on the southeastern side here. because it looks like it's decreasing in elevation, making its way towards the heap, and that's what it looks like they're doing, is that they're kind of making their way towards this very southeastern end at that area. So they are maybe a mile and a half or 2 miles away from the village of Belgorod, and we can see that it had already been pounded by our artillery in the satellite picture right here. And this was made in, I think, late 2023, maybe mid 2023, and that's the amount of shelling they sustained. We may even be able to see the trenches here, and I'm not really seeing any. Seeing some artillery impacts hitting the chalky ground around this area really makes the artillery impacts very pronounced. But not seeing any trenches. So the trenches may be a fairly new development in this area that didn't exist before when the satellite pictures were taken. But they are around right here. So getting back to the video.
Перишка. Пошел, пошел, осторожней. Отойди. Блядь.
We now see them laying down a pretty heavy amount of fire.
Пошел, пошел.
We hear another drone.
Птичка пришла, птичка.
Oh, it's right above them. You can see it up there. There it is. It's right up there.
I want to see the view from the Ukrainian trench right now. Them looking at that, like it's about to go south.
Oh, it's really about to go south.
Дай пройду. Там, да?
We hear some explosions up ahead.
Сука.
And we now see them firing at some kind of a dugout in the trench. I'm not going to lie, this is so disorganized compared to the Ukrainians, because the Ukrainians would have stacked up here for a second. They would have popped a shot off here and there while they were getting ready. And then one of them would have thrown in a grenade. They would have waited for it to blow up, and then the next one would have come up and sprayed into the dugout, and then they would have moved on. These guys kind of got up here. They were like, oh crap, there's a dugout here. And then they sat there for a little bit. No one's thrown a grenade. They're just kind of laying down gunfire into the opening of the dugout, but no grenade or anything at this point. We can also see that this guy just stood in the entrance for a little bit too, so if a Ukrainian popped out, he probably would have just gotten shot right there. It looks like he finally got a grenade, and now they're running away instead of just waiting for the grenade to explode. And now it looks like they may even be retreating off the field.
Oh, he's freaking out.
Yeah, I think he's just. Oh, and you're receiving gunfire again. He slid into the trench.
Yeah, he's in a panic.
Yeah, I think this guy is panicked and routing now. I don't know what the hell they're in, like a cavern of a sort. And now we can hear them getting hit by drones.
I think this is the time you should probably give up.
Yeah, this will usually be when you want to surrender. We hear another drone coming in. Oh, and that one's lining up to come right into the opening. Oh! Oh my gosh!
Wow. Oh, damn.
Oh, so they got wounded. This would be a damn nightmare because they're stuck in this hole. I mean, it's claustrophobic down there. There's hardly any room. And now the Ukrainians are just bringing in FPV drone after FPV drone until they take these guys out. I'm not going to lie. Watching Russian FPV footage from the war is depressing. Like, it's actually a little depressing to watch this kind of stuff because there is never a clip of them having their stuff put together and ending up succeeding. It's always something like this. It's always that they start off an offensive, it completely falls apart, and then they end up retreating. And if we ever found real clips of them succeeding in the future, I might try and show one or two so that way we don't look like we're completely biased and just showing you all the worst clips ever of the Russians. Because this is almost what I see all the time. Even on the clips that we can't show y'all, they always end up with something like this.
He must have somehow survived, though, to get this footage out.
Apparently, maybe one of them did, or maybe someone picked up the footage later. But we see it looks like a lot of time has elapsed now. And they're still stuck down there, and someone is clearly wounded.
They shot themselves too.
Another hit. But that's giving y'all a really good look at how the combat actually unfolds for Russians in the field. It's a very prototypical look into the life of a Russian soldier. And while we cheer it on, you know, of course, the Ukrainians knocking out and wiping out the Russian army, it is pretty sad to see clips like that here and there and know that these people are pretty much just being thrown into the pits of hell. There's really no chance of them surviving or escaping, even if they didn't want to be there. And it's just something else to see in actual video form like that. But anyways, moving on from that and into our next clip, we also got to see some Russians doing some quote-unquote training behind the lines. And it's very interesting training because it's motorbike assault training. You never heard of this kind before, but you'll see what it's about. Would this ever work? No, they get gunned down on the motorbikes before they ever got close to the trench. This is stupid.
Man, I gotta say though, the fact they can put two people on a dirt bike like that and not get somebody's leg all skin up, that's kind of impressive.
That is kind of impressive, I'm not gonna lie, but this is still a stupid
like a stunt bike.
Oh yeah, and I forgot, by the way,
they should just like stick to the basics at this point. Like just focus on like literally walking up to the trench because they can't even do that right.
Yeah, also, Matty, I just wanted to shout out the Russians for using live rounds in training. Always got to give it to them, real ones. They are willing to put everyone to death just for simple training. I just watch. You'll see right here. One of them fires around the corner, and you can see right there the impact of the bullet hitting the side of the trench. Got to give it to them. Live rounds in training like this. Wonderful, incredible stuff. But moving on, and I'm saying that sarcastically, by the way, for safety reasons. But anyways, moving on from that, we also got to see that a Russian BMP was burning near Ivaniivsky today. And we also got to hear the Chad music in the background. But we can see that thing burning.
That's a Blyatmobile?
BMP-3, actually.
Huh, it looked like it'd been like converted to a Blyatmobile.
Nah, BMP-3 kind of chill like Blyatmobile. And also, we got terrible news today that the Russians captured the town of Ivaniivsky. There's a catch to this, by the way. The problem with them saying that they captured Ivaniivsky, and I tried to find Ivanovka, there was no Ivanovka, it always came back as Ivaniivsky. The problem with them claiming that they have captured the town of Ivaniivsky is that they've captured it for about a month now. So, good job on them for capturing the city they've already controlled for a month. Good on them. Moving on from that and out of the Bakhmut area, considering that no frontline changes have been had there beyond the fake one the Russians tried to make, we also got to see that another T-90M was destroyed today near Ocharatine by the 47th Brigade. We're going to be muting that absolute brain rot, and we're going to be watching the T-90M speeding its way around.
Didn't we see this yesterday?
I don't think so. I mean, we did get to see a T-90M destroyed near Ocharatine yesterday, but I don't think it was this one exactly.
Ooh.
Ooh. Dude,
Stuka.
that thing be speeding.
Oh, he's still going. Oh, they had two red lined up for that one.
Ooh.
Oh, it's out of control. No, man, we saw this yesterday. It did that thing yesterday.
Oh, yeah, we did see this. This is a duplicate. Okay, so moving on from that, sorry about the duplicate, everyone. And moving on to our next clip, we did get to see a 2S1 Gazivka getting hit near the Avdiivka Coke plant. Aw, man, did someone say Coke? But yes, we got to see that the 2S1 Gazivka was hit here right now. Ooh! Have you ever wanted to watch a Russian SPG get blown sky high by the Ukrainian drone forces? Well, then you, my friends, are in luck. Introducing the all-new 2S1 Avdiivka burner, the ultimate in anti-Russian SPG activities. Watch that thing get incinerated. Watch it cook. Watch the Russians get cooked well done. A la Ricey. Oh man, I'm telling you. I don't know why I'm about to turn into Dangerfield, but anyways, we also got to see a Belgian AIFVB C25, which is a modified M113 with a 25mm Bushmaster autocannon mounted on top on a turret. There's the side profile of it. Pretty cool, because this thing brings the firepower of a Bradley's main gun on the hull of an M113, which is a very interesting thing for them to do, and I gotta say, I respect it. Just a decent bit of firepower for a light APC like this. Moving on from that and out of the area, it's now time for us to move all the way down into the Dnipro, because we were also able to see that down here near Novokakhovka, the Ukrainians are using TM62 anti-tank mines on some Russian positions. Blicky! But we got to see that they blew it up. I mean, you see him doing it again. And they're about to do it again. Oh my goodness. What an explosion. It's beautiful. Goodness gracious!
Damn!
And I love to see it. You know I do. And so with that, that's the end of the clip right there. Of course, wonderful to know the Ukrainians are using TM62 anti-tank mines on those Russians. And moving on from that, we also got to see that the 35th Brigade was hitting some Russian forces near the area of Kazachi Lahiri in the Kherson Oblast. Check it out. Boop. Check it out, folks. They're about to get obliterated here. Kaka! Kaka! There goes our Russian.
That was a mad-looking bird right there. You don't want to mess with him.
Man, that bird was asked, where's the Russian? He said, Sweetie, we are going to kill the Russian.
That bird was coked out.
Man, that bird was coked out more than some YouTubers. But we were able to see that the Russian moved from building to building as the Ukrainians continued to try and strike it and knock him out. And with that, we're now moving on into our next clip where we got to see the FPV view of the drone. And we see them hitting the Russians some more. Beautiful. Look at this. We love to see it. And that's the end of that clip, but nice to see, beautiful to see, and good to know. Moving on from that, it's now time for us to move on down into the area of Belbek Airfield in Sevastopol, because we have some more follow-ups. We were able to see that more Russian aircraft were damaged. Actually, correction. No. Wait a minute, am I sure about this? I'm fairly certain that this is around Belbek, but then I saw the pad, and I swear that this is not in Belbek. This is in another location, and I, for some reason, think that it's down here in Russia somewhere. And let me think. Let me rake my brain, because there's an airfield around here in this part of the country. Is it the Kupyansk airfield? Am I getting this right? Like, is this the airfield? Hang on. No, this doesn't look like it. But for some reason, it hit me for a second. It may be Kupyansk, but I still think it's Belbek, and I think that marker is accurate. But anyways,
let's see. Yeah, it's definitely Kupyansk, or how you say it.
Kupyansk airfield.
Yeah, that's it. Because I just went back and checked from a post from yesterday from Nexta, and it said it was that airfield.
But I'm not seeing the facility. Oh, wait a minute. Yep, there we go. It's just why did that like. I had this located at Belbek. Let me move this really quickly. I had it located at Belbek, but once I looked at the pad again, for some reason, it just screamed Kupyansk. You know, the brutalist design of the tarmac, the buildings, the support buildings on the side. I don't know what it was, but something screamed this airfield instead of Belbek. Have no idea why. But good thing that my spidey senses tingled, and I was like, this is not the right airfield. It is Kupyansk instead. Great thing to have that happen on air, so that we can see something like that happen live, because it usually happens behind the scenes. But anyways, we did get to see the aircraft were damaged at this airfield. And we see several aircraft were damaged, and a lot of them are now gone. That's kind of interesting, isn't it? But anyways, moving on back from Kupyansk and back towards the area of Belbek, because this is a clip that was confirmed to be near Belbek, we were able to confirm that air defense in large numbers has been destroyed, and it appears that Belbek may be completely devoid of air defense going on in the future. We can see that they're trying to move in a Kub as a replacement for the destroyed S-400s. But Kubs are wildly unsuccessful, as proved in the war, to detect or destroy air targets. And so with that, that's the end of the clip right there, but very nice to see that the Ukrainians will once again be dealing with far less Russian air defense than they have in the past. But moving on from that little bit of news and on out of the area of Crimea, it's now time for us to move on up to Kyiv, because it's time for that speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky here on day 822 of the war. And so, without further ado, here's the speech. It's an incredibly short one, but it's still a good one.
Give me a speech.
And let me get rid of that audio track, and here we
Give
go.
me a speech.
Дорогі українці, українки, зараз були перші доповіді щодо Харкова, удари по місту, по очевидному цивільному об'єкту, по торговельному центру, будівельному гіпермаркету. Субота – день, один з найбільших центрів. Всередині багато було працівників та відвідувачі були. Зараз пожежа на всій території, туди прибули усі необхідні служби, ДСНС України, медичні служби, місцева влада, поліція. Всі борються за кожне життя. Цей удар по Харкову – черговий прояв російського божевілля. Ніяк інакше це назвати просто не можна. Тільки такі божевільні, як Путін, здатні вбивати і тероризувати людей так підло. Вже відомо, що є поранені, є загиблі. Мої співчуття рідним та близьким. Кожному, хто постраждав, буде надана необхідна допомога. Коли ми говоримо лідерам світу, що Україні потрібно достатньо захисту ППО, коли ми говоримо, що потрібна реальна рішучість для дозволу захищати життя наших людей, саме так, як це буде ефективно, щоб російські терористи не могли навіть наблизитись до наших кордонів. Ми говоримо про те, як буквально не допустити подібних терористичних ударів. Я дякую лідерам, які нас дійсно підтримують. Дійсно бачать, що кожне рішення на підтримку України є рішенням на захист і порятунок життів. Сьогодні у наших воїнів на Донеччині є результат, який є необхідним на всіх напрямках, в усіх тих районах, де російські удари загрожують нашим позиціям, нашим містам і громадам. Воїни нашої 110-ї окремої механізованої бригади, які збили сьогодні черговий російський Су-25. Звичайно, якби у нас було більше адекватних, сучасних систем ППО та авіації, то російський повітряний флот вже зазнав би такого ж краху, як їхній Чорноморський флот. І російський терор став би просто неможливим. Збивати російську бойову авіацію, російські ракети, їхні дрони – це реально миротворчі заходи. Дякую всім в світі, хто допомагає нам зброєю. Дякую кожному і кожній, хто працює в нашому оборонному комплексі та виробляє для України захист. Дякую усім, хто воює заради України і наших людей. І вічна, світла пам'ять усім, чиї життя забрали російські вбивці. Слава Україні!
And Herom Slava.
And Herom Slava.
And with that, that is the end of the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky on 822 The War. And that moves us on into the second segment of the stream, where we get to talk to all y'all. It's the funnest segment. I'm not even kidding, because we get so many jokes, so many laughs, and so many gaffes out of the segment that it is truly one of the best. One of the greatest, I'd say. And also, I gotta say, thank you everyone for joining us tonight so far. There's still a lot left, so make sure to stick around. But thank you for joining us tonight so far and watching us. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe, because I just want to give you all a little bit of a heads up. Right now, our channel is at 214,980 subscribers, meaning that if you subscribe right now, you have a pretty high chance of being the 215,000 subscriber. I'm just saying, no pressure. You don't have to subscribe. I know how annoying it is to hear other YouTubers say, hit the like button, subscribe, and all that crap. But it would be really cool to see that we hit 215,000, and one of y'all could have the really cool claim of having the 215,000 subscriber title, which would be pretty cool. But beyond that, no pressure or anything. No pressure. I cry if y'all don't hit the subscribe button, but no pressure. No pressure at all. We're going to be moving on into the second segment, though, and we're going to get to talk to all y'all about everything. Everything. Y'all can bring up whatever you want when we talk about it. But with that, Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so moving into our final question segment of the night, we have one more poll to address, and it says, U.S. intel warns of potential quote-unquote major provocation by North Korea to distract from the Ukraine war, and what are your thoughts? It looks like 57% said it's very likely because Putin wants it. It looks like 23% said it will only be a missile test, and 12% said it is very unlikely because North Korea really doesn't want war. And this is something right here that I think we need to pay close attention to, because Putin is planning a trip specifically to go to North Korea. He's done that before, I believe, but it's kind of a rare visit. And I think he's showing up there, like U.S. intel believes, to persuade Kim Jong-un to start a provocation to basically wear thin the attention span of the West in focusing on Ukraine and begin to refocus their efforts toward North Korea and also Taiwan as well. That's also why I believe that Putin met with Xi Jinping the other day, was to basically sort of coordinate some sort of distraction, so that way the war in Ukraine can kind of run its course without the West really interfering very much from this point forward. Do I think that's going to work? Probably not, but it depends on what type of provocation we're talking about here, because based on the statement we're seeing from U.S. intelligence, it looks like they have no doubt that North Korea will do some type of provocation, but they fear it could be as major as potentially starting a war with South Korea. So I'm not sure if that's really the case, but U.S. intel believes so. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that in my honest opinion, I think that the North Koreans may try and conduct a distraction. But what would that distraction be that would draw attention from around the world towards North Korea? The only thing that they could do is try and invade South Korea. So, that would cause it a big enough diversion, because nuclear scares don't really do enough anymore, So I don't really know. I mean, maybe they'll do something like that, but I'm kind of doubting that anything that they could do beyond that would cause a big enough distraction away from Ukraine, in my honest opinion. And also North Korea, aren't they like poverty stricken and like starving? So it's not really like they even have the stomach to do something, because that disappeared a long time ago. But with that, I hope that does address that at least the best I can, in my opinion. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and with that, we're fresh out of polls. Y'all know how much we love the polls, and we've given them plenty of love tonight. 4 polls tonight. So we're now moving on to our Super Chat segment, the final one of the stream. And up first, we have that massive $200 donation from Toadman the First. Toadman the First has been supporting bigly these days. And yes, I said bigly. And thank you very much, Toadman, for that $200 support. He says, I feel so guilty that you sacrifice vacation and self-time to do research for videos and make these streams that give us good and accurate information about the world's conflicts. And keep up the good work, and seriously, take some time off to get a break and stay healthy.
Oh no. Toadman the First, you're starting it again. People are going to be like, take a day off, take a day off. I thank you massively for the support, Toadman the First, and I thank you for caring so much, and I thank you for really appreciating that we have sacrificed for 822 days now, really any chance at a vacation or anything like that, to make sure that we can keep on getting news out. Some people, and that's something that I always say, that I always use as an argument about some haters, because some haters say that we only do this, much like most of our haters do, at least YouTube haters, just to make money. And the thing about that is, like, if that was really the case, why in the world would we have so much passion for it that we wouldn't even take any free time off? That's something where I'm always like, that makes no sense, because other YouTubers do it just to make money, and then they will more than happily boot the audience to the curb, boot their work and efforts to the curb to go and enjoy what money they've made. And that's something that just never mattered to me. What mattered the most, and what still matters the most, is always trying to make sure that we're here for y'all and we're putting news out. Because I don't like this is something crazy. We are the 85th, just yesterday alone, we were the 85th largest live stream on YouTube. We were on the charts. We were in the top 100. 7,000 and I think 400 people, 7,500 people were on yesterday at the peak watching this show. And tonight, there was 7.8 thousand of y'all here. More so than there was yesterday. And I feel a massive amount of gratitude that so many people listen to us, because the chances of people listening to me in real life are incredibly small, because I have a very small amount of people I talk to, which are really just Matthew, my parents, and they have heard me do this my entire life, and they are sick of it. They are tired of it, because I do this until my face turns blue most times. So to think that there are 7.7 to 7.8 thousand people who were here tonight that valued what I said enough to even be here, I feel a massive amount of gratitude for that. And that's why I'm always here, because it's crazy to know that so many people actually appreciate a little bit of what I have to say, and also what Matthew has to say too. And not only that, we owe everything to y'all. Y'all are the whole reason we're able to do this as a job. Y'all are the whole reason that this is so fulfilling and worthwhile to do, is because all of y'all are here each and every night listening to this stuff. And so while all of y'all always want us to take a vacation, it's y'all that are the reason why I never want to take a vacation, because I enjoy getting to talk to y'all and share this news with y'all all so much. It has nothing to do in the end with subscribers or making a living off of this thing. It's just that we truly get a lot of joy out of this, and I truly do enjoy doing something like this and getting to share the news with y'all each and every night, so that way y'all can say nice things like we appreciate the efforts that you go through to do this and all that stuff. I mean, that is truly incredible, and that is enough for me to say that no vacation would be worth taking time off from doing this. And I got to give you a huge shout out though, Toadman the First, for massively supporting this channel and helping it to keep running. And not only that, enjoying what we do and wanting us to take a little bit of free time off. And also, Matthew, could you reread his super chat? Because for some reason on my end, it's not allowing me to be able to reread it. It's just not showing up. So could you reread to make sure I covered everything?
Let's see, that Toad man, he said, I feel so guilty that you sacrifice your vacation time. And also, keep up the good work and take some time off.
Okay, so I did make sure to cover everything. I was just wanting to double check. But still, thank you, Toadman the First, for really appreciating what we do. And thank you for supporting it, because it does make it possible, and it makes it a reality for us to do this as a job. And this is a job that I would never give up for any other job out there in the world. But still, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And thank you, Toadman the First, for being an absolute OG of the channel in helping us to keep this thing running with massive support like that. Absolutely incredible. And we are entirely grateful for you for helping us to make this thing a reality, so that way we can continue to make sure that we do not take a vacation. But with that, also before we move on from that, I did see some people say, you got to take a vacation for your health before y'all start dropping out from stress and heart attacks. Oh, well, you know, at the beginning, like, you know, because now that it's passed, I feel fine talking about it. At the beginning, it was very stressful on Matthew and me to run this thing really 7 days a week. And I will say that there were several times where we would either just end up breaking down from stress or something, but we would power through nonetheless, and we would make sure to put on a show that night. Very rarely were shows canceled, usually due to...
Man, we were snapping all the time during law school, I'm not gonna lie. Like, behind the scenes, there were some heated, like, arguments, because the tensions were high, because it was like a struggle. Like, law school alone was, like, stressful enough, because for one thing, I really didn't want to be there, and number two, law school is just stressful by nature, and then add the stream onto it, and staying up till 1 o'clock in the morning every day, and then trying to go at 8 o'clock in the morning to law school all day long. That was a nightmare. I wouldn't repeat that. Wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy.
Yeah, and what's interesting about that is that we had me, who was wanting to make sure that the show kept going as normal, although that was driving us crazy. And then you had Matthew, which was a lot more practical, and he was trying to cut down the stream time to be shorter, so that way we could get some more sleep. Instead of getting, I think it was like 4 hours of sleep, we would get 5 hours of sleep. which doesn't really seem like a big change. It's like the boat on fire versus the boat smoldering. It's really going to catch on fire either way. But that was a huge thing back in the day. And I mean, we were running ourselves ragged, and we were getting in huge fights because it was like, you know, damn it, whether we're going crazy or not, we can't sacrifice quality and we can't sacrifice stream time because all of y'all are counting on us. And Matthew was like, if we keep going, we're going to explode. We're going to implode more so, and we have to cut down stream time. And that was a huge thing. We were legitimately being driven crazy back then. So, you know, people are saying it would be bad for your health and you're going to end up in the hospital. If we would have ended up in the hospital, we would have ended up there already, to be quite honest. We just power through.
At that point, I would have loved to end up in the hospital at that point. Like, put me in the hospital bed, let me just lay there, please.
Yeah, and then another thing, now that we're out of law school, I can kind of riff on it a little bit because some of the things that happened were stupid. Many of y'all know that I came down with a Wuhan whirlybird last year during that semester of law school, and we weren't able to run streams. And Matthew can tell you, I actually had a fever of 103 for 2 straight days. It was horrendous. It was it was actually one of the sickest I've ever been. And I sat there and I messaged the law school, sent proof that the Wuhan whirlybird test came back positive, and also sent proof of my fever. I was like, I have a fever of 103. I simply cannot show up because the university's containment procedure said that I had to quarantine for a week. Like it just said that in the university's like quarantine thing. And I was like, I cannot show up. I'm making sure to follow university rules. So what do? How in the world do I keep up to date with all of the law school stuff that's going on in all of these classes? Or do I just catch up when I come back or something? What do I do? So the law school said, well, you should be showing up. But we'll let that slide a little bit because, you know, maybe the university rules say something different about quarantine procedures. We don't know. We're too lazy to look into that, although we're a part of this university. But yeah, you need to make sure to keep up with all these assignments and stuff, although you have a fever of 103 and you're almost dying right now and you're not even running your business because you're that sick. And then I went, you know, these people are so stupid. That I don't really know if I even want to be here anymore. That was really the first moment that I sat there and I was like, I don't really think I want to be in law school anymore. Because I was like, you know, I get it that the real world doesn't care if you got sick. But the reality is that I have been in the real world, and the real world does care if you get sick. People will be like, take all the time you need, especially if you have the Wuhan whirlybird, because no one wants to get that crap. Take all the time you need. And so I sat there and ended up having to call, who was it, Matthew? Who did I end up calling? It was one of the people, it was like the vice dean or something, I think. I ended up I ended up calling them, and it took a damn rigmarole just to call them. So I ended up having to pull out the line, listen, we're paying blank amount of money to be here, which is an insane amount of money, and I can't even get to talk to the vice dean about something like this that's this important while I'm dying of a fever. So I finally get on the phone, and then they want to be an asshole. Like, I'm just going to say that now up front. They wanted to be an asshole about it, and then sit there and say, well, you know, you should be showing up. So I was like, so you want me to show up with a fever, with a contagious virus, to the law school and give this to everyone else just so that way I'm not absent. Well, I'm not saying you should do that, but I'm saying that you should be here. And I'm like, what the hell are you even getting at? I was like, so you're telling me that you have a PhD and you passed the bar and everything, but you're too stupid to understand this premise. Like that it was an entire thing that annoyed the hell out of me. And at that point, I was like, I think I'm going to hate this field because if I'm going to have to deal with this, I'm not going to be dealing with this for that long. And so I'm
not gonna lie. Like that, now that we're out of that law school and stuff, I can say it freely. They had some clowns running that law school. Like really, like I'm not even like gonna hold back from saying that. And I won't say the name of the law school. I won't go that far. But there were some clowns in charge of that law school we were going to. I would not recommend that one to anybody. It was one of the lowest ranked law schools in the country. I'll say that now that we're out of it as well. It had good, like, high requirements to get in, but it was one of the lower ranked ones. It was accredited and everything, but nah, like, not recommending that law school. Sorry.
And another thing, and this is something now it's thank God it's over. I can bring this up really quickly. So some of y'all may know, if y'all followed some of the drama behind the scenes, that there is a group of crazy people who are always trying to do stuff to us. And one of the smart things that they came up with was that they were going to call the law school we were at, and we were tipped off about this, so thank the Lord we beat them to it. But they were going to call the university we were at, and the one that the law school is attached to, and tell them that we had firearms on the campus and we were about to engage in an event that would have made national news. That was a plan of theirs. So I reach out to one of the vice deans. I forgot who they were, but I reached out to one of them and sat down with them and explained the situation because I wasn't wanting to get swatted in the middle of law school. And the whole thing was absolutely stupid. I mean, like to cut it short, it takes a whole half day to take care of. I go back to class. I tell someone about it because they're like, oh, where in the world have you been? I was like, oh, well, it's this whole thing. And I explained a little bit of it. And so you know what they do? Instead of trying to follow through with it, they sit there and call me back to their office and say, hey, don't be telling people that because it's going to scare them. And you're going to get in trouble if you keep doing that. And I was like, but they just asked. I'm not going around trying to spread fear. I'm just telling what happened. And then that was another stupid thing that we dealt with. And I was like, you know what? If these people are too brain dead to even get this is not the career I want to be in. And so those were two big things that happened back then where I was like, I clearly do not want to be in law school. But anyways, we've been rambling on and on and on. But beyond that, thank you so much once again for the support, Toadman First. And I hope they kind of address the whole thing about stress and all that stuff. Because we've done it all, we've dealt with it, and at this point, I've settled into this routine. I'm perfectly fine doing it. I'm more than happy to continue to work into the ground. If that's what y'all think it is, I will keep working into the ground to make sure that we get news out daily. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support, Toadman the First, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next super chat is going to go to JMP Traveler, who threw in a very, very generous $100 donation. Excuse me. And thank you very much, JMP, for that very generous support. He said, when Putin is usurped, deposed, arrested, what will happen to Russia? And a new election, strongman, or a breakup of the Federation, and money for Secret Service to drink or get a pastry. And thank you. That'll go to my pastry fund. Thank you very much.
and thank you for the pastry fund. And that is incredible to know that you want us to have a pastry fund, JMP Traveler. We will get the best kind, British pastries, which in my opinion I think are wonderful stuff. But the great question: what would happen if Putin was removed? Well, if we went off of the precedent of leaders of Russia in the past, there will be no election. There will just be someone who makes it in there. Like when Gorbachev stepped down, Yeltsin stepped up. Like that, it was literally almost like a seamless shift. It immediately went from Gorbachev to Yeltsin. And while they said that Russia was going to be democratic, it never really ended up being that. So if Putin was deposed, someone is probably going to immediately step up in his stay and fill the power vacuum and say, I am now the leader of Russia, and we're going to create an interim government where it's going to be it's going to be a true democracy, and we're actually going to try and follow through with conducting some sort of a democratic process of voting for representatives, but we're going to have to take a couple of years to set that up, and then over time, it most likely will backslide again into some sort of an authoritarian regime, but of a different flavor, is the best way I can put it. Because throughout the history of the Russian lands, there has never been, since the Mongol invasion or before, a democratically elected government or any kind of a democratic system to vote in or out people. There's just never been one. And there never will be, because the kind of authoritarian government system that the Mongol invasion and occupation of Russian lands laid out, it practically ensures that the only government that can survive due to the culture that persists in the region is an authoritarian one. And for that reason, I just don't ever think that a democratic country will exist in Russia. There will be different dictators with different kinds of thinking, kind of like China, for example. Like China has had nothing but dictators. They've only had one real president who actually peacefully transferred power, and that was in the last decade. Well, actually, that was in the decade before last. But they've never had a real president since in China. It's always been some form of a dictator one way or another. And going off of that, I think Russia will be the same. It'll just be different flavors of dictators with different mindsets on things. And I don't think we'll ever be able to get the Russians out of that. Many other Eastern European countries, though, have gotten out of that, like the Baltic states. And the Baltic states did have democratic governments at a time before they were reinvaded by the Soviet Union. And Poland did have democratic governments as well in the interim period in between World War I and World War II. That was fairly successful. But that's because these countries are less attached to the Mongol influence than Russia is, and Belarus, for the most part. That's also why dictators can thrive in Belarus as well. They're more attached to that Mongol, brutal, authoritarian form of governance, where everyone is screwing each other over because the only thing that matters in the Russian government is the check that you bump forward to the next guy up the chain. And that's how it runs, and it will never change, to be quite honest with y'all, unless if there was a massive cultural evolution in Russia that would make that not the case. And I just don't see that happening anytime soon. Because whenever the Russian people in the past have been able to have a cultural evolution or a revolution of a sort, like for example under Gorbachev or under Tsar Nicholas II, they usually end up bucking those people, calling them weak, and then demanding for a dictator to be in place. Like for example with the Russian Civil War. This is an interesting idea. Tsar Nicholas II started to lean more so into what you could call the proletariat and started to lean into their demands. And their demands only grew. And then finally they said, Tsar Nicholas II, because he's leaning into our demands and he's not crushing us, he's weak, therefore let's just overthrow the government and bring in one of our own. And then they did that, and then Lenin got sent back from Germany. While that was happening, the Bolsheviks took over, and then they just got a dictator pretty much of a different kind. And then when Gorbachev was in, and he brought forward Glasnost and Perestroika, which was a cultural revolution of its own in the Soviet Union, which allowed for free speech and open criticism, the Russian people used that ability to criticize him for being weak, for allowing them to criticize him, and therefore there needs to be someone stronger in charge. And then that's when the quiet revolution happened in the Soviet Union that overthrew Gorbachev, brought forward Yeltsin, and collapsed the Soviet Union, but brought forward a new dictatorship of a new flavor. So I think that it just will keep on going that way forever until the Russian culture changes. And a lot of people just... like, this is something that I saw in sociology, and I will be entirely honest with this. Some people say that cultures have no impact on governance systems, and I would have to completely disagree with that. Cultures are the basis of every government. You have to have a culture that is conducive for a democracy to exist. If you don't have one, it just won't exist. The best example of that is Afghanistan in recent history. I think it is a perfect case study. The Afghan nation is not a centralized nation. It is not an advanced nation technologically or educationally or literally. Like in literacy rates, they are incredibly low. And for that reason, modern mindsets of democracy cannot spread. Or if it does spread, it spreads in a very small clique in Kabul, because that's really the only area where any kind of modern amenities or services exist in Afghanistan. So you have a whole bunch of tribal people, pretty much, who have tribal mindsets, which there's nothing wrong with, but they live out in the Hindu Kush and in the other areas of Afghanistan, and they have no access to concepts of democracy. They believe in the old tribal ways of governance, which is what has reigned in Afghanistan for millennia. And then the United States comes in, installs a quote-unquote democratic government that really has no access to the far reaches in the tribal peoples who live in Afghanistan. And then whenever the tribal peoples run into this new weird governance system, they buck it because it's nothing that they know, and it's absolutely stupid to them. It has nothing to do with their cultures or their customs, and therefore it's an affront to them. And so the first chance that they got when the U.S. started withdrawal, they overthrew that government. And that is something that would have been seen 20 years ago. There is no way in hell that the culture of Afghanistan would support a democracy. It is something that would require a complete cultural change in Afghanistan for that to happen. And it never happened. And so democracy could not survive there. And it's the same thing with Russia. It's just on a different level. Yes, they look a little bit more democratic, and it probably would take a lot less for the culture of Russia to shift to where a democracy would actually be accepted. But it just will not happen. I don't think it will happen if Putin was removed here soon. And so, JMP Traveler, I hope that does address your question fairly well, and also give a little bit of some backup information as to why I think that that governmental change will never happen. But I think, with that in mind, we'll have to work at with what's at hand, because I'm not one to be a pessimist and say it'll always be a dictatorship, so just screw them. That's not the case. It will never be a democracy. So we'll have to work around that. What kind of government would work in Russia that would get us what we want, would make the Russian public happy with pretty much kind of having a strong-handed dictator, and would make the world go around? what would the answer to that question be? And I wouldn't have one at the moment. That's a very complex question that would take years to try and figure out an answer to. Trying to work with the Russian people working with everything else, that would take a long time. But I think there is a way to work the Russian government once Putin is deposed or the government collapses, where one could come back. It still will be authoritarian, but it may be pro-Western, or it may be willing to work with the West. And so with that, I hope that does address that incredibly well.
And also, we just hit 215 subscribers. Let's go!
Let's go, baby! We just hit 215. Man, we are getting close. We are, let's see, 35,000 away from 250,000, a 250,000 subscribers. Insane, man. Absolutely nuts. And I love it.
Also, I just want to say this. You know, this will get the hot dog water flowing beautifully. We are recommended by the Kyiv Post top 10 Ukraine war news stream. We're also mentioned in General Petraeus' book, by the way, as in his book, Conflict is a top source. 215,000 subscribers just reached just now. And I'm telling you what, we're number 85 out of 100 in streaming in the United States. How about that? That's tremendous, I must say, all thanks to the LSA.
Tremendous stuff. Tremendous stuff. And everyone knows the LSA. Whether they love it or hate it, they know it. Because the LSA is one of the biggest pro-Western communities out there in the world right now, if y'all didn't know. It's kind of cool to know that. But anyways, also, by the way, I do want to show this really quickly, because some people are going to be like, I call cap, you were not in the top 100. Oh, we are. Like, let me go grab it. Let's see here. Most live viewers. That's what we want. We want this one. All right, so here's the website that compiles the stats daily. Their numbers are a little off, though. I think they were off by like 100. They underreported us by 100 last night. But anyways, number one on the internet was Tesla last night. Just in case if y'all don't know, they had 250,000 live viewers. I don't think we'll ever get close to that. But moving on out of that area and all the way down the list, we are at number 85 as of yesterday. Number 85 out of 100 in the entire world on YouTube that was streaming last night. We were number 85. If y'all are wondering what is the highest we've ever made it on the charts on a single day, it was actually the number 5 spot. We were top 5 in the world when the Iran-Israel situation was going on. We beat everyone, including Fox, CNN, ABC, CBS, and I believe a couple of other news organizations that were on that night. We beat them all for viewership by miles. So
isn't that crazy? Look at that shot. I made it, Ma. I made it. We're not on the Forbes, but we're on the Playboard. I'm telling you what, it's like Billboard, but it's not for music. It's for streaming. It's Playboard.
Man, it's incredible. It's absolutely incredible. Someone's going to be seething out there because of this, and I'm all for it.
So mad.
I'm all for it. But with that,
also $1.4 million raised for charity, by the way. I forgot to mention that as well. I'm not saying this to brag. I'm just saying this just to get the hot dog water flowing. That's all. That's the only reason I'm mentioning all these accolades here is because of that. Typically, we don't mention it, but you know, tonight it's a special occasion. I have to get the hot dogs marinated very finely.
Man, we even beat PUBG Esports, which is an entire like video game tournament live stream. We beat them.
Damn, that's crazy. Damn. That's a big one. Like we're like right below Live on Patrol too. That's like a live like police department like camera thing.
Yeah, look at that. And we're just a little bit below Flow Racing. Who else was on the graph that y'all want to? Dateline NBC. They weren't that far above us. They were like, let me check. They were only about 1,000 above us last night, so they weren't that high up there really. But let's see here. We got a whole bunch of people that I don't even know what they do. And let's see here. We got Orange News, apparently covering news about oranges. Disney Junior, which was number 46. NBA, which was number 38 at 15.5 thousand live viewers. This is actually kind of interesting. Coco Melon was at number 36. Dude, we beat Coco Melon like many times then, because that's kind of wild. But anyways, let's see here. What else do we have? Whole bunch of that fella. I don't know if we can even bring him up because he's political. But let's see here. CrossFit Games. And then let's see here. We're getting up towards like the very top. And I still don't know a lot of these people. I Show Speed was at number 2. and then Tesla was number 1, and those are really the only people on the graph that I would
Also,
know.
that Ryan Hall fella, I watch him. I actually watched him tonight, by the way. He does weather. I think he's in the number 5 spot, by the way. He was up there at number 5. Pretty good channel, by the way. Pretty good weather reports.
Man, look at him. He's up there. He's doing his thing. He's vibing. Look at him. Like, he's in his zone. He's moisturized. He's in his own lane. But really cool to know that
You say he's moisturized? Is that what you just said?
Yeah, it's a meme. It's like this whole thing,
Oh.
like you're moisturized, you're in your zone. It's like a spa thing. But anyways,
I was like, you're wild. I know what you're talking about.
Man, like, if I said that and it's ever been out of context for y'all, it's this meme about a frog, and it like has like a bit, like I think it's water or lotion on its back. By the way, that's like poisonous for frogs. Don't do that. But it was just a picture of it sitting on a leaf. And someone put a caption on it. They were like, look at the little fella. He's moisturized, in control, in his zone. He's chilling. And it was just like that. And for some reason, that stuck with me. I was like, if anyone's ever chilling, they're moisturized, they're in their zone, they're in control, they're just chilling. And that's why I say that. It's not a bad thing. Don't take it that way. Don't do it. But anyways, I hope we addressed that the best I can. And thank you so much once again for that massive support, JMP Traveler. And I hope I addressed that incredibly well. And thank you for helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next ones.
All right, so jumping into our next super chat here, we have a $27 donation from Ari Soini, Kiwi Wife and Finn. And thank you very much, Ari, for that support once again.
Hey!
And sadly, no comment to address on this one. But of course, the support helps keep the channel running, and we appreciate it very much. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I gotta say, thank you for the support, Ari Soini, and helping this channel to keep on running. You didn't throw in a comment, but the support means a lot, and it helps us to keep this thing rolling. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to be here right now. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And of course, thank you for being a longtime channel legend, Kiwi Wife and Finn. And we're glad to have you here. And with that, we're about to move on to the next one. Matthew, I saw something in the chat. I had to address it. I'm sure you saw it. It was someone said, at Enforcer Matt, and let me go read it, because I'm going to address this one really quick. I'm not going to make it a long rabbit hole. At Enforcer Matt, ask the host, what does he think about the fact that every Western country is built on colonial genocides, such as Australia that was built on genocide? Well, how about China that was built on genocide, like the Great Leap Forward, or North Korea that was built on several genocides, or Japan that genocided the Koreans and the Chinese? Or how about, let me think, what else? The Indians.
A little bit.
The Indians and the Pakistanis, who all conducted genocides on each other, or the Persians, who conducted genocides on other people in the Middle East, or the Turks, who on their way from the Siberian steppes through Europe conducted loads of genocides to create the nation that we now call Turkey and was formerly the Ottoman Empire. Or how about Egypt, who conducted genocides against all loads of people throughout their history, and they still exist today. Or Saudi Arabia, who conducts crimes against their people right now. Or the United Kingdom, which went around colonizing people and ending up conducting small genocides of their own. Or the Germans, who conducted probably one of the most famous genocides in history. Or the French, who conducted some massacres in Algeria and a whole bunch of other things. Or the Belgians, who cut off Africans' hands in the Congo and ended up creating one of the worst genocides ever seen in history then. Or how about the Brazilians, who end up conducting genocides against the people of the Amazon rainforest, the indigenous people there. Or better yet, how about the United States, who's conducted genocides of her own against the Native Americans. Or the Canadians, who did the same thing. You could do that on and on.
You know, it was just different times. It was just different times, you know, over history. That was hundreds of years ago. It's like, you know, back then they didn't have like rules of war necessarily like we have today. People didn't have the same like level of morals, I think, that they have today, if you can believe that, and sort of, but sort of what. But it's just a different time. Just they don't do things the same way anymore, and it's just, you know, people will say, "Oh, that was horrible," and it was horrible, but it was just a different time.
But I will say this. If we're talking about genocides, every country on Earth has conducted a genocide. So, you know, whoop-de-doo, like once you look at that, it's like, well, I can't, like, what is the United States supposed to do, or Australia supposed to do? Live with an eternal shame that they're like every other country, and at some point they did something that wasn't that great, or was close to, well, it was criminal. Are they supposed to be more sad than other countries like China, who also did the same thing, or Japan, or the Koreas, or Russia, or anyone else in the world? Like, it's a goofy argument to me that countries in the West should be ashamed of their genocides like they're any more different than the genocides of other countries that we're not fans of. That doesn't really make a lot of sense. And on top of that, everyone's really on the same playing field there because literally everyone at some point in history has conducted some kind of a genocide or conducted a crime against humanity by modern definition. So going off of that, I kind of throw that out of the picture and then I look at things qualitatively. I go, what kind of governance systems are better? What cultures seem to produce democracies that the West would be proud of? And a lot of those countries are Japan, South Korea, Asian countries that conducted genocides, but hey, they're not that bad nowadays. Australia, New Zealand, which conducted genocides of their own culturally and also physically, but they're pretty good countries nowadays. What can we do? Germany conducted one of the most famous genocides ever, the Holocaust, but they're a fairly good country nowadays. They have a pretty good governance system, so what can you do? I mean, you can't...
Wait a second. I don't mean to interrupt real quick, but I saw the person that said that question. They said, this tells you everything. They're pro-Russian, first off. But they said Russia has 180 ethnicities and 60 official languages. All indigenous people still are here, unlike in your amazing North America where you genocided all the Indians. So who's democratic? Wake-up call to you. Russia's literally conducting a genocide literally right now, right in this hour. So, you know, Russia is definitely not a country which is known for peace. It's not a country known for being fair or honest. It's not known for that. So that propaganda line does not work. Also, I don't see any genocide going on in the United States anytime in recent modern history. So clearly, you don't have your facts straight.
In Russia, we're so democratic. We put lots of people in these things called gulags, which are joked about even in Russia because they were so horrendous and killed millions of people. And we also did this thing, for example, we conducted this amazing thing called the Holodomor, where we genocided the Ukrainians in the millions by creating a state-manufactured famine. Or better yet, the Great Famine altogether, where the peasants get pissed off and they killed off their cows, and the Soviet government, instead of trying to help them live, decided to starve them all as a punishment. Or all of the other purges throughout Russian history. What a democracy. Or the modern Russian genocides, where you send hundreds of thousands of you guys into a meat grinder. Or you end up killing a whole bunch of Ukrainians in a supermarket today. That's a democracy, folks. A real democracy.
Also, for the democracy as well, how do you explain all the open windows and people stumbling out of them daily? How does that work? Also, how come when people meet with Putin, they suddenly come up missing a few days later, banging their heads on the side of yachts, and then somehow getting a bullet? How does that work? Tell me, how democratic is Russia really?
Also, another thing. 180 ethnicities, 60 official languages. That sounds wonderful. But when you put no money towards these people and they live in shitholes where they don't even have toilets or plumbing, how much of a democracy is that really? Or are you really just shafting these people by taking their money and then putting it into Moscow and St. Petersburg and giving them nothing in return? What is really a democracy? You know what I mean? Like,
also, Bliat, how democratic are you when you go and get young men fresh out of high school and you force them to go into a meat grinder, Bliat, for the almighty Putin and sacrifice all of their lives who have barely begun just for one old man who's angry and wants some land? How democratic is that, brother?
And I just want to also say one more thing. You know, carrying on about the whole ethnicity thing. If I'm not mistaken, America has no official language. That's how stupid you are. Because recognizing an official language would be promoting one group over the other. That's why government forms can come in any language that you need. Mostly English and Spanish, but you could request others. Bleed. So, does not make a lot of sense. Also, one other thing I just got to say, while you're screwing over your ethnic minorities in Russia, but you'll officially recognize their languages. I guess some of them got screwed and didn't get their languages recognized, like the Tuvans. But beyond that, here in America, the Native Americans still live, and they actually govern their own lands. Like, there's actual, what we call in America, Indian land, like this one, the Choctaw Nation, that controls this whole area of Oklahoma. Kind of a little hard to say we screw them when they actually control their own land nowadays, have their own official languages, run their own small countries in America. And not only that, they have running plumbing and electricity, which is something that the minorities of Russia cannot brag about. So kiss my ass. But anyways, with that, ban them, Matthew, and we're going to be moving on to the next one.
They've been banned for a good minute.
Yeah.
But anyways, moving on to our next super chat here, we have one from Andy L, who puts in a $20 donation. A huge shout out to Andy L once again for that support, and also extending the offer that if we ever pass through Texas, he said, come on by. And we sure will. I'm not sure when I'll be back in Texas, but we sure will do that. And thank you very much for the kind offer. He says, in your opinion, what one event could the Ukraine military do inside of Russia that would turn the Russian civilians against Putin?
I think that is so hard because they usually hide anything that the Russian army does that's bad to the public. So it's really hard to have an atrocity that would be so bad it would turn the public against it because they'd have to spread like wildfire. So what could they do, Matthew? Like, let's brainstorm for a minute. What could the Russians do in practicality, you know, thinking realistically, that would actually turn the Russian public against the government?
One thing, what is something that the civilians in Russia believe are protected by the Russian military so well that it couldn't be hit? What target would that be? I was about to say something that hits their pocketbooks really hard. The oil refineries are an ongoing process. That's not just one single event. That's over months and months and months. Eventually, that's going to hurt the civilians very badly, and it's going to turn the civilians who are already broke even broker, and then they're going to start turning on Putin because of that, because they don't have money. But one single event, I'm not really sure. I don't think there really honestly is one single event they could do. It's just every option they've got is a long process.
I know. A full mobilization, that would do it.
Are you sure that would even do it? Because, they've got a high tolerance for that crap. Like, they just kind of adapt to whatever, like, crap's thrown their direction.
I mean, that's true. You got a point. I think if anything would get close to doing it, it would be a full mobilization. I don't even know if that'd do it. Matthew's got a good point. Who knows if that would even work? But I think the closest thing to that, to turning the whole public against the government, would be a full mobilization that affected everyone. That might be it, but even then, I'm not really sure if they'd really get pissed off enough about that. Because over time, we have seen that Russian citizens have very, very weak backbones and are more than willing to take any kind of abuse from the government that is dished out to them and just take it. So I'm not really sure that would even turn them, because I think they're so scared to rise their heads up out of the ground to get them chopped off that they wouldn't do that. So I hope that does address that the best we can. If there was a single one thing, a full mobilization might do it. But even then, I'm not entirely sure.
Honestly, really, the only one thing that the Ukraine military could do to turn the Russian people against Putin is simply not to attack inside of Russia, if we're being perfectly honest here. There's plenty of stuff that Putin could do to turn the Russian civilians against him, but anytime Ukraine attacks inside of Russia, in my opinion, that just makes the Russian people, if they were on the fence before about hating Ukraine, that definitely turned their mind at that point. And then they're like, okay, now I'm being directly attacked by Ukraine, so now I really hate Ukraine. So that's just radicalizing them further against the Ukrainians. Not that Ukraine should stop attacking mainland Russia, but that's the mindset that gets formed by attacks on the mainland. So, the Ukraine military really can't do much, in my opinion, to really turn the Russians against Putin.
Yeah, I would honestly have to agree with you on that. I just don't think there's a lot that could be done. But if I had to give you an answer, it would be full mobilization. But even then, I feel like that's a bit of a stretch. But still, thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And I hope we were able to address that the best we can. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Wubba, who puts in a $20 donation. Thank you very much, Wubba, for that support. He said, I'm in late tonight, and $20 says the hit on the mall is what removes the restrictions on hitting targets in Russia with U.S. weaponry.
And that may be the case. It may be that the U.S. goes, you know what, that's an atrocity, especially because we don't have the casualty report at the moment. If the casualty report is incredibly high, that might... Wait a minute. Oh, my lord, Matthew, you can actually see on the satellite picture the large market that got hit a while ago and had multiple fires caused. You can actually see the fire damage here.
That's kind of crazy. It says the image was taken in 2024 with Maxar. So, that is recent.
Wow, that's whack. Let's see. The epicenter thing was somewhere around here. Where in the world was it? It was kind of close to there, but not really. Where the hell did it go? Because I remember we had it. It was up here. Wait a minute. Here it is. There's the epicenter right there. So maybe that is something that will turn the American government into the towards the mindset of, yes, they should be able to use American weapons in Russia. I'm not really sure, though, because atrocities like this have happened in larger scale before, and we haven't really seen that be the biggest catalyst for decision-making in America, but hopefully this time it would be, because that would certainly help out Ukraine a lot for American weapons to be allowed to be used inside of Russia. And so with that, I hope that does address that well, Wubba, and thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running, because it is folks like you who helped make this thing possible, help us to keep it rolling, and if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to be on air right now. And also, one other thing, Matthew, it looks like this building was also hit and also had a major fire as well. So it looks like the Russians have just had a nice, good, reoccurring theme of hitting the largest buildings that are used by civilians in Kharkiv while people are inside of them, I would assume. Because this building has a clear severe hit that burned the roof off. The large market down here also got hit several times and burned. Any other buildings around the city that have been hit? Post office hasn't been hit. Let's see here. What else? Let's see here. Not really seeing much. Those might be the only buildings that are hit. Well, no. This one looks like it might have. Not really, no. It doesn't look like it was really hit. But interesting. Also, Matthew, one thing I wanted to show before we move on is the Dershprom, which is kind of an interesting building. I think it was built in the 30s, but this is the building. Right there, down there at the bottom.
That's a weird building.
Yeah, it was.
What was the type of architecture style on that? Just anything that went?
Leninist architecture.
Lenin.
It was built in the 20s, man. The 1920s, 100 years ago. I'm not gonna lie, it was kind of forward for its time, for it being the 20s, but it is a really weird building.
That is weird. Also, Andy, by the way, you might want to watch out there where you're at, because there's a huge tornado right now around Denton. So, keep an eye out for that. I just saw that on Twitter, by the way. I was like, oh, man, it's like sort of out there near your area.
And also, thank you once again for support in helping the channel to keep running. Again, Andy L. But also, do stay safe out there, because tornadoes are devastating. We've actually had two pretty much go right over us in our lifetime. One of them was actually, I think, right before we started running this show, or a little bit after. But it was close, and those things are incredibly dangerous, especially when you see the damage. But I'm sure you know that, Andy L. You've probably seen a load of them out there. But still, with that, I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
And our next super chat is going to go to Joe Hobo 00, who puts in an $11 donation. Thank you very much, Joe, for that support. He says, do you think that Iran and North Korea developed nuclear weapons on their own? And I'm wondering if Russia sold them tech in order to cause instability and divert the attention of concerned parties and slow Ukraine.
From what I understand, North Korea certainly developed their nuclear weapons on their own, because we watched them spend decades conducting these tests and research, so we know that they had like a natural evolution to theirs. We also know that the Iranians are most likely going through a natural evolution of their own nuclear weapons, because it's been taking them an incredibly long time, from what we know, at least over 10 years, which would lead us to believe that the Russians probably do not have a lot of involvement in providing the Iranians or the North Koreans with any kind of nuclear tech or nuclear weapons. So I would say that these are entirely organic from the ground up, a lot like Pakistan and India's nuclear weapon development programs were as well. But with that, I thank you so much once again for the support, and I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to DJ Waffle, who puts in a $10 donation. And thank you very much, DJ Waffle, for that support. Seems like we got Drop Nation in here last night. Now we got DJ Waffle in here as well. So he said, love the work you're doing.
And thank you, DJ Waffle, and thank you for enjoying the work we're doing. We try our best to make sure that the work we do on this channel is top-notch, and it really makes y'all folks happy with the news we deliver. And I'm glad to know we were able to do it again today for you, DJ Waffle, and I thank you greatly for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, and I hope I addressed that the best I can. The best, Jerry, the best! And with that, we are on to the next one. Thank you so much once again.
And our next one here is going to go to Andrea Fed, who puts in a 10. And they said, owner of a small pickup truck, wondering what the story of Frog and Toad is. I'm a huge fan of Wind in the Willows, and pick one from the chat. And is that not the little like animated series or whatever where the frog was like, hi, a motor car, and he went, bah, 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 bah.
The Adventures of Mr. Toad?
Is that a different one?
Reread it again.
It's they said it's a motor car.
Yeah, that would be the Adventures of Mr. Toad. Let me pull it up.
You want me to reread the super chat or redo the imitation? Which one were you wanting?
Reread the super chat to make sure I heard it all right.
He said, owner of a small pickup truck, wondering what the story of Frog and Toad is. I'm a huge fan of Winning the Willow.
Where in the world did you get the motor car thing from? Because I was like, reread that again, and then you went, a motor car. I was like, that's not even in super chat. Like, where did you get that
I
from?
thought you were asking me to like redo like the imitation, like you didn't understand it. I was like, don't you remember that like childhood like imitation?
That childhood imitation, not like imitation crab, but beyond that, I gotta say, thank you for the support. And the story of Toad and Frog, it's just like Toad and Frog together again. You know, it's just the title. We did know Toad and Frog a little bit as kids, like not personally. We just knew the books, and they were pretty freaking good. I'm not gonna lie. But still, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that the best I can. And thank you so much once again for helping this channel to be possible and helping it to keep on running. Also, the Mr. Toad I'm talking about, if you're like wondering, it's this one. I'm only going to show it on screen for like a half second because I'm scared of Disney. Don't hurt me. But still, with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Panama Floyd, who puts in a 10 and says, take at Value Radar's question about who would be in the modern axis of evil and probably way up the spreadsheet by now. And Panama, let me see here. There's that damn frog. Wait a minute. I was watching the wrong one. Never mind. He pulled that up a second ago, but let's see. Say what?
Oh, nothing. I was doing the Toad and Frog song, but go ahead.
But let's see. Value Radar. Let's see here. Value Radar's question, sponsored by Panama Floyd, goes to, if we had a global World War III, who would you think might join the axis of evil, in addition to Russia, Belarus, North Korea, China, and Iran?
Cuba, Venezuela, although I think they'd get curb stomped so bad they wouldn't want to. But if they did join, it would be those two. And then, maybe... I honestly think that would be it. Like, South Africa, no, they wouldn't. They certainly wouldn't. And no one else would want to join because largely everyone else in the world doesn't really like those people. So, I would say maybe Cuba and Venezuela, but that would be about it, excluding the Russians, Chinese, North Koreans, and Iranians, as well as the Belarusians. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And thank you so much.
I think Turkey would be in there too, honestly.
No, man, Turkey wouldn't be in there because they're in NATO. They get their asses kicked.
I think you'd just see some people flip, honestly. You'd see it probably, let's see here. I don't know if I'd go as far as to say Hungary would flip. That might be a bit far. But Turkey, they're on the fence.
Maybe. We'll have to see. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And thank you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to YJOOVN, who puts in a $10 donation. And a huge shout out to you for that support, by the way. And they said, do you think humanity has a chance long term?
Of course we do. We've had a chance for thousands of years. We'll keep on having chances for thousands of years, my good man. My good man. I'm not one of those people who are like I'll be honest with you. I find the kind of pessimism where people are like, oh, people are so stupid and naive. I find that to be kind of like a cringe, not going to lie. Because when you think about it, it's like, if people were that stupid and were going to kill each other, we would have done it first chance we got with the nuclear bombs, and we haven't. And I think for that reason alone, humanity will continue to survive, thrive, and deal with the challenges ahead and overcome them like we always have. I always like to be more of an optimist than a pessimist because pessimism is such a modernist thing, and I'm really not a big fan of modernist thinking, like modernist art, modernist architecture, that kind of stuff. I'm not a big fan. And modernist thinking really propagates this sort of nihilism and pessimism that I'm just not a fan of because it doesn't produce anything. It only removes. And I believe that humanity has so much to continue to improve and add to the world that we continue to do each and every day, but people are so blinded by their pessimism and nihilism of humanity that they fail to see the innovations and massive progress and wonders that people continue to make on a daily basis. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that well in kind of a poetic sort of a way. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Scott Kemp, who puts in a $10 donation. And thank you very much, Scott, for being a longtime channel viewer and also supporting the channel as well. He said that thanks for what y'all do with humor galore. And by the way, I have been stuck at 3 donations for years now. That's weird.
That is weird. That is really weird, Scott. But I got to thank you so much once again for support. And thank you for enjoying the work we do. And thank you for being here forever, Scott Kemp. It's crazy to think that we've been on this adventure for 822 days with all of y'all, and it's really good to know that we'll continue to be on this adventure for 822 days with more, maybe, or even farther with each and every one of y'all. It's been amazing, and I got to thank you so much once again for having been a part of it and continuing to be a part of it. But that is weird that you're stuck at like 3 donations forever now, and it's not your 3rd donation. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to John Scott, who puts in a $5 donation and does not leave a comment. But thank you, John, for that support once again, and we appreciate it very much. And we also have a 5 from AMX10 Speedy Bang Bang, who says, Putin wanting to freeze the lines, plus NATO weapons being allowed to hit Russia, would actually motivate Russians to join due to the narrative of defense.
That may be the case, but at the same time, it doesn't matter how many Russians will join. It really matters how much oil they have left and how many tanks they have left. And from what we know, those numbers are dwindling quickly. And so with that, I hope that does address it well. But you're right; it'll probably lead more Russians to join, but it would probably be futile in the end for them to join because they still wouldn't have enough support or supplies to back up those new recruits. But still, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that the best I possibly can. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one is going to go to Wyatt Logan, who puts in a 2 and says, I just want to say that you guys are badass. LOC.
Hey, thank you, Wyatt Logan. We are badass. I'm just kidding. Oh, we're just people. We're just people. We just do our thing. We just do it. We're not badasses. But I do thank you for the high praise, though.
You know, is there such a thing as a badass and good ass?
Well, I know there's a hot piece of ass, so, like, is there, like...
Whoa, Jack, whoa.
Wait, listen, you were asking. Whoa, hey, you were asking. Don't you read? Like, don't you know? But I don't know. I don't know if there is such a thing as good ass. I've only heard badass. That's it.
And now that I heard you say that, I'm like, well, I meant that as like an innocent joke, but actually it sounds kind of like it could
really
be taken
bad.
a different way.
Yeah, that sounds
really bad.
But I was gonna roll with it, Maddie, and that's why I said the other one. And then you were like, whoa, and I was like, what the hell do you mean? But anyways, with that.
I was sweating in the live chat. They said, "Oh, sweating. I'm sweating." Dude,
I don't think they're sweating. I think that's something else. But beyond that, getting back. Thank you, Wyatt Logan. But getting back to Scott Kemp's laced with humor. I can see the live chat blowing up right now from that little exchange. So yes, I would say it's laced with humor a good bit. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support, Wyatt Logan, and helping this channel to keep on running. I hope we were able to address that well. And Monster Gaston said, "My virgin years," and in my heart, like screaming that loud actually made my heart like go into reset mode. So might be going into cardiac arrest here. But still, thank you, Wyatt Logan, for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. So with that, we are now moving away from our super chat questions and moving on to our live chat questions.
No way.
But away.
Dude, we've hardly been in this segment, man. Like, I was just looking at that. I was like, it's only a 2 hour and 40-minute stream right now.
Well, lucky for us, we've got some really good live chat questions. And up first, we've got the Morse Code Decoders. Tonight, there was Mark Hodges and I think it was Paul Schultz and Kevin J, I think, as well. And they said, LSA tonight's Morse reads, the counterattack will drive the Russians from Kharkiv's fields. Long live the LSA. Slav Ukraine. Slav LSA.
And That is the sound of money! And y'all got that dead on the nail. That was the Morse code message of the night. I gotta congratulate y'all for getting that correct on the 822nd day of the war, and y'all will continue to get it correct for another 822 days if necessary. I thank y'all once again for being a part of the Release Spring Army Signal Corps and continuing to decipher the Morse code messages day and night to make sure that everyone in the chat is able to understand the Morse code message and what its message beholds. And so with that, thank you so much once again to each and every one of y'all for being a part of the Release Spring Army Signal Corps. And with that, we are now moving on into the live chats proper. And so what do we got, Matthew?
All right, we got some proper live chats. This one is going to go to Sloth, who says, Matt, what effect has the new GPS countermeasures on the Ukraine's missile strike capabilities? And it's not good, Sloth, because it's caused the Ukraine to actually have to shelf some of the Western weapons that relied on those GPS systems, because Russian jamming has gotten apparently pretty good at that, at being able to scramble it. So it looks like some of the weapons we've sent to Ukraine, I can't tell you the exact ones they are because I don't know right offhand, but some of them have been shelved, and that's been confirmed by the Ukrainian military. But Enforcer, what say you?
Matthew covered that so well, I don't even have to cover that, to be honest. He kind of covered the exact same thing I was going to be saying. Matthew, you're picking up these days. One day you're gonna replace me, man. But anyways, with that, I hope that doesn't.
Man, I'm telling you, whenever I do a video like the prior day or something like that, I'm on top of like literally every story, like because I have to do all the research and pick the best ones. So I've literally like memorized all the stories. So that's on the days when I'm like I can answer every single question in the live chat. I've been like making a video the day prior, most likely.
Man, I respect the grind. I respect it. And with that, I hope that did address that question well. And we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Dan of New Jersey. That's like, let's see, what's the guy? Leonardo of Vinci. It's Dan of New Jersey. He said, could you comment on the HIMARS situation in reference to whether or not they're effective?
HIMARS are incredibly effective, not only with the ATACMS, but also with the M39 and M40. I believe it's the M39 cluster bomb and then the M40 unitary warhead. I believe that's what those are, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I have those either correct or they're backwards and they're just flip-flopped. But they're very effective, especially at deeper strikes behind the lines, at least 50 miles behind the line. But with the ATACMS, they are good at hitting literally anything, anywhere inside of occupied Ukraine. So they are wildly effective as an artillery system, and the Ukrainians covet those systems because they are some of the best at what they do. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And thank you once again for a really good question. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And let's see, this one right here goes to JTK, who says, how long until Putin goes after the Baltic states, honestly?
I would believe that it would most likely be when the war in Ukraine ends. If it ended successfully, it would probably be maybe a few months, and then he would start trying to go for the Baltic states. But if the war in Ukraine is lost by the Russians, I have a feeling that the imperial ambitions of Russia will be put onto the shelf permanently, because there just will never be a way to carry it out. Even right now, I don't think there's a way to carry it out. So I would be honest, I think the Baltics are most likely going to be safe at this point. But you never know. And if it wasn't to be safe, it would probably be a few months after the Russians won the war in Ukraine. But that's never really going to happen at this point. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the next one.
All right. And our next one is going to go to Linda Stafford, who says, I think that the mall attack in Kharkiv could be retaliation for striking those ICBM strategic radars. And do you think that's the case?
Maybe. That's not out of the question, but that's one sick way to respond to that. I mean, Ukraine hits a radar, which is a military target, so they bomb a mall. Like if that is the kind of Russian logic that the Russians are working with, they have got to be the stupidest people on earth. But I mean, that may be what they're doing. I mean, I wouldn't put it beyond them. So I would have to say I don't know for certain, but that's a strong maybe. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. And also, let's look at the store next door, Daffy. Dude, they have every single logo you could imagine on the store, and it's got like a playground in it.
It's like a theater.
Dude, this place is Ritz.
Wow, that's crazy. They still got a mall culture over there. That's kind of wild because it's pretty much dead in the United States.
Well, actually, mall culture is brand new because they never had malls in Soviet time. Well, like American malls like this in Soviet times. So this is actually something that comes right at the collapse of the Soviet Union in like the mid 90s. That's when the mall began to rise in Eastern Europe. And so they still exist, and the culture is so strong because it's such a new phenomenon. Just like it was in America back in the 50s, in the 60s, and then it stuck around until about the 90s and the early 2000s. It's kind of the same thing over there. It's kind of starting to grow and reach its peak.
Interesting. I kind of wish that malls were still a thing here, but the only problem is malls always become like havens of crime, basically, and it gets basically infested with some very rotten people. At least in America, it does. And that happens pretty much everywhere.
Let us tell y'all a story of the River Chase Galleria. This place is called the Shooting Galleria, like the shooting gallery around here, because there is like. That one hasn't happened recently, but for a while, it was like an endless stream of shootings that was happening in this Galleria. It was insane. It
was really just one, honestly. It was just one of them. Some guy pulled out a gun or something like that. Someone else like shot the guy. I think he took him out or something like that was doing the shooting. And it was that one, like from that point forward, it was downhill from there. Like people got scared to go there over that one shooting. And then it got really rough. It got really rough.
Wait a minute. No. Wait a minute. I think you got the story wrong on that. Because if I remember correctly, a shooting started. Someone, like the actual shooter got away. Like they shot a couple of shots. I don't think they hit anyone. And then they ran out of the building. Or no, actually they ended up wounding a little girl or something with one of the bullets. They ran out of the building. And then some guy who was, I think, a private first class in the army pulled out a pistol in the mall to try and face down the shooter, which had already run away. The cops came rounding around the corner, and then they shot and killed that guy who pulled out the pistol. I think that's how. Yeah, I think that's how that actually went down. But that sent the Galleria into complete freefall. Like I actually went through there recently. It was a little bit before Christmas last year because we had to do some. I had to do some Christmas shopping, and we went through there, and like every single big name brand store except for the corner store, the corner stones of the mall, like Belk, they were all gone. Like there used to be a Lego store there, it was gone. All of the toy stores that used to be there when Matthew and me were kids, like when we were like 11 and 12, all of them were gone, and all of them were replaced with kind of like pawn store kind of outlets. And for a major mall like that to have pawn store, like pawn shop, that's the right way to say, pawn shop outlets in it, you know that mall's on the way out, and they're just trying to fill space to keep the lights on. Really, that's the way it's working.
Crazy. It's crazy how fast all the malls went out because, like, for example, that's the mall in Birmingham, Alabama, which is where we live. That mall it's pretty sketchy. It's not horribly dangerous. You can still go to it if you want, but it's kind of dangerous. The mall down there in Montgomery is a hellhole. It's very dangerous. Gangs infest the place from what I've seen in my own personal experience. Then if you go to Atlanta, Georgia, the Buckhead Mall over there is literally so dangerous that people know not to go into it because if you do, there's gangsters literally standing around waiting for you to get you, or at least that's what I've seen. And also, if BC Skyman was, I'm not really sure, to be honest with you. I couldn't identify it right off the bat, but if BC Skyman was here tonight, he would tell you the same thing as well. He lives in Atlanta.
Yeah, I mean, malls are pretty tough. And speaking of Montgomery, because we used to live around Montgomery, the mall Matthew's talking about in particular is this one, the Eastdale Mall, aka the Blood Bowl, because this thing has a bowl-shaped parking lot around it, so there is no escape. Like once you start running, they're getting you. But this mall is hell. And also another interesting thing about this mall, to share with y'all some local lore from Alabama, is that there's an ice skating rink in this mall. And at one point, when we were kids growing up, there was a leak of the gas that helps to keep the ice solid at this ice rink in the basement where you went to go change your shoes into the ice skating shoes. And someone died down there from the gas. Like they died in like the fitting room.
I think it was a Freon leak.
Yeah, it was a Freon leak or something. It was like a freak thing from like, I guess, under management or something. Here's some pictures of the mall. And that's actually the ice skating rink right there. That's the one. And like to the right, off screen, there's like this little like door thing, and you walk down into a basement pretty much, and that's where you switch out your shoes, and that's where the Freon leak happened, and that's where the guy ended up dying down there. Let me see if I can get y'all a better picture.
Also, I'm told by Panama Floyd that the mall that apparently I think I'm talking about in Atlanta, the dangerous one, is apparently Lenox Square in Buckhead. That sounds familiar. I think that might be it.
Let's see here. Lenox Square. Let's go back and let's try and find the Lenox Square Mall. Dude, you know, that would kind of be a cool thing to do. It's just like the malls of America and go around to dying malls. You know, like and make a YouTube series.
You're not catching me going to Lenox or whatever that mall. I think this might be
This is it. Yeah, this is the one I went to. I was like, it's this one, right? And you're like, I don't really know. It was that one, dead on the nail.
Yeah, I think that's it. If it's this one, super dangerous. Like you know, I remember back in the day, like when we used to go to Atlanta when we were much younger. I think it was still safe then, but I don't think anybody with any sense goes into this mall if this is the one I'm thinking about.
Dude, it's abandoned, man. Look at these pictures.
That's crazy.
No one's in there anymore. Like the whole place is empty.
That's wild.
Honestly,
I believe it though if it's that mall.
Honestly, this place can't be that dangerous because there's no one even in here. Like you could probably go in here fine. But man, that's crazy. Let's see here. It's right by the MARTA. That's wild. Like, I mean, haven't we stayed in like a hotel near this place or something?
No, that was well.
Are you sure? Because I swear it was like up in the Buckhead area. Like,
no. It was down there near Atlanta. Like, I think there's different parts of Buckhead.
Well, that's Buckhead right here. Well, wait a minute. What in the world does this look like from the interstate? Maybe that'll give us a good idea of where this is at. That's not the interstate.
Nah, man, this is a different part, I think.
No. When we get on that interstate, dude, we've been here, man. Like, look, there's that building, like the parking deck thing, and you drive under it. We have been around here, man. Like, I swear.
I don't know. I mean, it could be. It's been such a long time since we've been to Atlanta. It's just I know there's a dangerous mall over there, and literally everybody knows like stay out of that mall. And I'm like, yeah, I know why. We've seen it.
Man, last time I went over to Atlanta, which was actually while we were running the show, it was like 4 months into running the show. I went over to Atlanta to go look at something, and when I was driving back, some guy had driven his Challenger into the back bar of like an 18-wheeler trailer, and it sheared the top of his Challenger off, and it also decapitated him and also cut off his hand, and his hand was still laying on the interstate when I drove by. And also they put a blanket over the guy's body inside of the car, like they hadn't even pulled him out because he pretty much became one with the car. But I remember that, and I was like,
you know what type of Challenger it was? Was it a Hellcat?
I think it may have been. But one thing that was wild about that though is that they had somehow put the blanket over the guy while he was in the car, and I was like, huh? I was like, yeah, he must be in pretty tough shape, and they can't even get him out of the car right now, so they're trying to figure out a way to either cut the guy out or something like that. But that's when terrible. But well, you know, like it is what it is, I suppose. But when I was driving through, I was like, you know what? I was like, I think this is the last time I'm going to come over to Atlanta, and I think that happened. Let me think, because I was on Interstate 85. No, I was going Interstate 20 because it was from Birmingham. So where was that exit? Let's see. It wasn't that one. I was on the interstate. Oh, yeah. Okay, so I can actually show you. It was literally like this Challenger had ended up colliding, and I'm trying to think here, trying to put this all together in my head. It ended up colliding with the back of the 18-wheeler, literally like right here. Like the 18, like actually you could see almost where the 18-wheeler was. It was somewhere like right here, and the Challenger just went. So I guess the Challenger may have been coming off the ramp into like almost dead stop traffic and just rammed into the back of it, and that's how the guy got killed. And Butcher 777 said, "Was he okay?" No, he was dead. Like his head was gone. Like he was dead. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that. Fairly well, at least the best I can. But that's the last time I went to Atlanta. I wouldn't go back again. But anyways, we are on to the next one, and I just like trauma dump. Everyone's like, "Oh my god!" in the chat. Like y'all, I've got to be.
I've got worse stories than that.
I got to be quite honest, folks. I've watched enough. I've watched enough of people getting maimed and butchered that it just doesn't really have that much of an impact anymore. You know, some people are going to say that's terrible. It is, honestly, to be desensitized to that kind of stuff. So when I saw it, I was like, ooh, that's rough. And I was like, you know, pretty bad. And then I just went about my day. So, you know, it's just
Man,
kind
you got nothing on what I've seen.
Well, I know you saw like chunky bits out there on the interstate on 459. I know that. Like,
I saw a dude. I saw literally a dude on the interstate that, you know, it was a close call.
Wait, are you talking about the guy that? Are you talking about? We're about to. I'm gonna have to uncensor this really quickly. Are you talking about the guy who got blasted on 459 by a passing truck, and he turned into a bowling ball? Yeah, that guy.
I don't know if he jumped onto the interstate or what, but something happened, and the guy was in the road, and you know, vehicles came along, and you know.
Yes,
it was in the road.
Pretty much, they just blasted the guy to chunks. Is what Matthew's trying to say. It was pretty horrendous. I didn't see it, but my mom and brother saw it, and they were like, "That's pretty bad." And then they were like, "Was that really a person or was it a deer?" And then later on, it came out over the news that there had been a fatal impact of someone out there on Interstate 459, which is the ring road around Birmingham, and the guy had ended up getting killed in the hit. So then they knew it was not a deer, it was a person. But anyways, I just
told my mom. I just told my mom it was a deer. But I knew what it was immediately. I was like, well, I know exactly what that was that I saw on the road back there that the 18-wheeler literally just hit. But apparently it was just a deer. But then the news article came out and it kind of blew the whole story to bits. And then my mom was like, "Oh my God." I was like, no, it was just a deer. I was like, oh my God, there's the article. Damn.
Yeah, you know, it was not a great day for them. I didn't see it, so you know that is what it was. But it wasn't a great day for them. It wasn't a great day for me in Atlanta, and they didn't see that either because I was alone. And also, Jay Bagel said, "Enforcer Matt, guy gets decapitated in a Challenger." Matt says, "Was it a Hemi?" I mean,
I'm just asking because I know when he said a Challenger, I'm like, listen. I know if they're driving a Hellcat, I know what was happening. They were probably doing something reckless at a street racing or something like that. So if someone says it's a Challenger, it's a Hellcat, I'm like, I can tell you the whole story right now that I even haven't been there. What happened, especially wrecking that bad.
Man, Matthew gets drafted in the army. Sees an entire firefight happen before his eyes. Watches a whole entire squad get mowed down. Crawls up to the last guy and says, "Hey, was that a firefight? Like, did we win?" Like, it's like, Matthew,
excuse me, was that an HEK 416? Hey, what? What?
Hey, did you see that guy's gun? Kind of looked nice, right? Like, oh anyways, that we are on to the next live chat.
So we actually have a super chat this time, once
really?
again from YJ Ovian, who puts in a 10, and thank you very much for the support once again. They said, thanks for the last answer and the thoroughness, even keeled, lighthearted approach. We appreciate it. I'll ask my next one tomorrow.
Hey, and thank you so much for the support, Jovian, and thank you for enjoying the answer. We try our best to get the answers out, and I'm sorry sometimes to folks who get short answers because they'll ask a good question, but then the answer is just kind of like it's like a straightforward kind of thing. It's almost like a yes or a no kind of a thing. And I hate that because I feel like people are like, dang, why do you just like gloss over it? I'm not glossing over it. It's just that there's usually like a binary answer to some questions. But I thank you so much for appreciating the answer because I try my best. And also thank you for enjoying the lighthearted approach and being even keeled and all that because you know, we give it our best shot, like with everything, whether it be horrendous, whether it be great, we always try. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support, Jovian, and thank you once again for helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we're getting back into the live chats again.
All right, so jumping back into the live chat, the proper ones, that is. This one goes to Ronald Mead, who says, do the Ukrainians have glide bombs?
Yes, they do. They have American-provided glide bombs. They have, I think, French-provided glide bombs in the form of the AS-250 Hammer, and they also have their own glide bomb kits that they've been working on as well. So they do have glide bombs. Yes, that's one of those. That's one of those questions, Matthew, I was just talking about with Jovian, where it's really a binary yes or no. It's like, do they have glide bombs? And the short answer is yes. But then I'm like, dang, everyone else gets a long answer, and I'm like, I don't want to like jip you for asking a good question and just say yes and then be like next. So I hope that does address that well, and I hope you don't. I'm trying, damn it. And with that, we are on to the third to last question of the night.
And this one goes to Nick, who says, would anti-tank mines be effective when used with a catapult-type artillery piece?
Anti-tank mines could be effective with that sort of an artillery system. Really, anti-tank mines are effective as long as they get close. So no matter how in the world you're getting them there, whether it be by Baba Yaga or whether it be by like a ballista, pretty much, as long as they are hitting close to their target and exploding, it's effective. So the answer to that question would be yes, that sounds like it would be an effective idea. And so with that, I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the second to last question of the night.
All right, and this one goes to Jason Coslow. He says, Matt, do you believe there is a big difference from accidentally hitting civilians with an unguided MLRS and a target strike on a mall? And if you're asking me personally, I would say there is a difference because one, there's intent, and the other one, it's just incompetence. Does it make it any more wrong or right? Not really, but at least on one, it's a quote-unquote accident. But the other one's on purpose. So to me, the targeted strike is going to be much more severe than the untargeted one. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say, in my opinion, both of them are the same because whether it be by incompetence or deliberance, well, actually, there has to be a bit of deliberate action by firing an MLRS into a populated area where it would kill civilians. So I would say that both of them are really deliberate acts. It's just that one delivery system is far more accurate than the other, but if they end up killing civilians or being fired into an area filled with civilians either way, I think it's the same result. I think it's atrocious either way because civilians are unnecessarily dying and being targeted by an enemy armed force. And so with that, I hope that does address that the best I can, at least in my opinion. And let us know in the chat what y'all think about that. Do y'all think there's a difference or not? Because Matthew thinks there is. I think there isn't. There's really no right answer to this. It's really just a matter of opinion. So let us know in the chat what y'all are thinking, because I'd be kind of a little interested to know while we're rounding this thing out. But with that, we are on to the final question of the night. And so, who is the lucky last person to put in the lucky last question of the night?
And that viewer is a big fish out of water.
Hey!
I hope they get back in it soon. They said, do you think drone-dropped leaflets would do anything, or are the Russians simply too brainwashed for that to work?
I don't really think leaflets would do much. Because we haven't really seen them do a lot in Gaza, to be honest. The Israelis have dropped a lot of leaflets, and we haven't really seen much come of them. I think leaflets are one of the least effective forms of propaganda, in my opinion, at this point in history. I would say TV broadcasts, things like that, like hacking them, are far more effective than the leaflets. But maybe they'd have a minimal impact, marginal impact. But every Russian has a TV, and that's guaranteed, like 100% guaranteed. And so finding a way to hack into a TV station and broadcast a signal to Russians with TV would probably be more effective at reaching out to them than the leaflets. But that's just my opinion, and it still could be effective. It's just that I don't think it would be as effective as other options. But with that, we have reached the end of tonight's stream at the top of the hour. I've got to thank every single one of y'all for watching this channel tonight. It's been unbelievable. There were 7.8 thousand of y'all here tonight at the peak. A truly unbelievable number. And 57,000 people have watched this stream before it ended. I've got to say, oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. We have one last super chat.
And this one goes to Toadman the First, who puts in a 50. And thank you very much, Toadman the First, for the third support of the night, I believe, and also for joining the Patreon as well. He became an enforcer on Patreon, by the way.
What?
Huge shout out to Toadman. Generous support, indeed. He said, will Russia resort to biological weapons before nuclear weapons?
I think they probably would, because biological and chemical weapons, while still being verboten, or forbidden. Verboten is the German word for forbidden, by the way, y'all. But anyways, beyond them being verboten, they are less escalatory than nuclear weapons. Nuclear weapons, as far as their damage and destructiveness, are the final step of escalation. It is really the end of conflict, because really both sides will cease being in any meaningful form once nuclear warfare occurs on a strategic level. And so going off of that, I would say that the Russians would engage in biological warfare and chemical warfare before nuclear warfare ever would unfold. But with that, very good question, Toadman the First, and thank you for the incredible support, and once again helping this channel to keep on running. And thank you massively for joining the Patreon as an enforcer, which is the highest rank that you can be on our Patreon. And so with that, thank you greatly once again. And I hope I was able to address that question incredibly well. And now, with that in mind, it is time to end. I've got to thank every single one of y'all so much once again for the for everyone watching. I gotta say, it's an unbelievable thing that we had 7.7 thousand people on here live, and 57.2 thousand people have watched this thing before it even ended. Nuts. I also have to thank everyone like Toadman the First for the unbelievable support tonight. That is absolutely incredible, and it of course helps this channel to keep on rolling. So I have to thank you massively, all of y'all who support the channel, for helping to keep on running. And I gotta thank everyone else for being here as well. Everyone who hit the like button, everyone who was watching, everyone who was in the live chat. Every single one of y'all makes this channel worthwhile, and it makes it so fulfilling and so rewarding to be able to run this channel and tell y'all all the news. And if you're new to this channel and you did enjoy it, make sure to subscribe. We have right now 215,018 subscribers, and if you subscribe, you could be one of those people. I gotta also give a huge shout out to everyone for helping us to surpass 215,000 subscribers tonight, and not only that, being longtime members of the Lee Spring Army. Almost all of y'all are. And so with that, we will see you all tomorrow night for the Sunday night fundraiser. Good night, good luck, take care, stay safe, Slava Ukraini, and long live the Lee Spring Army. The Lee Spring Army will never die.
And good night, folks. And like the Enforcer said, thanks for another great stream once again tonight. It was a ton of people on tonight, and we almost got to 3,000 likes as well. Huge thanks for that. And also, be sure to join us tomorrow for that fundraiser stream to raise some more money to help these civilians in Ukraine. The best night of the week is always Sunday night fundraiser night. But with that, Slava Ukraine, Herom Slava. We'll see you all then, and good night.
Yes. The Leaf Spring Army sends